Hey guys, Tarke here, and today there's going to be a very special Baeclast. There's going to be zero hostility because Warner Brothers has patented the Nemesis system, so we can only have friendly energy. With that in mind, Raiz, what have you been up to?
Nice. Not much has changed. We're not doing an audio check. Hope that works. But not much has changed. So to summarize my league start, I guess again, my first build was bugged. My second build was bugged. Then I died to a disconnect. Then I rolled a third build, which wasn't bugged. And then they released a patch, which made it so that my stream would lag. So I couldn't really do that. And it was incredibly infuriating. They still haven't fixed Hierophant. And so I went all out on Karima Necro, trying to do the Delve race. And yeah, I don't think I'm going to have enough time to fully gear it the way I want to, but it might still work. I think because there's basically a 1 month Delve event right now going on. So whoever's going to be the deepest within the 1 month is going to be like eligible for prizes, or for the top 3, I think, people. And yeah, I've been looking to do that for like forever. Every league I want to do deep delving on SSF, and it just, yeah, something always happens. And yeah, this time was no different, I guess, with all the problems. But my characters, yeah, it's interesting. It's starting to work, and I think even if I'm not able to fully like participate in the event, I'm still gonna try and like get the deepest that I could before ripping on that guy, because I'm not too far off. I need to like finish my shield, make a new weapon, and like finish my amulet, and I'm pretty good. Like 18k EHP or HP. I don't know. People call EHP something different now. It's like mana, life, and ES. And I've got like max block, max spell block, recovery, ES and life recovery, with no glancing blows on block. And yeah, it's a Necro, so Bone Shield is pretty good too.
You doing anything
Nice
like
character.
new with it, or is it just the standard one that everyone's been playing for the last few leagues?
It's pretty different now because I'm trying out the non-agnostic approach. So I'm using ES and I'm using the Doriani Timeless Jewel. It's really freaking good. I was pretty surprised about the level of sustain that you can get. I have like 3.5k ES, I think. And yeah, the leech is more than enough to sustain. I don't think you need Soul Tether. And yeah, the most tricky part was getting, or is still, because I still haven't got it fully figured out, getting the double leech, right? Because you need life leech and energy shield leech. So I'm trying to get that through a jewel and the other one through a timeless jewel, and then the other one through the amulet. But crafting a like element leech amulet now is not as easy as it was before because the tags are changed, and yeah, that's been a whole ordeal.
What about you, Nugi? Chat was like, Nugi is not impressed by Raiz's build.
What? No, it's
Oh.
a good build. What? 18,000 HP on a Necro with max block? That's sick.
No,
That's
pretty
sick.
tanky.
Not
And obviously
impressed?
the Fortify too and everything. It's nice.
Yeah, of course. No, that's nice. Do you have anything else, like, mitigation-wise?
No,
Are
just
you-
Necro. That's it. So like 30% mitigation from the corpses.
The
And the
generic, yeah.
Right.
And you have Fortify. I watched you stream a couple times. You have the Vigilant Strike Fortify stuff, right?
Yeah,
Right.
it's pretty
But
good, and I really
it's not
love
like
that.
the juiced up Fortify, right?
Yeah.
So it's still
no.
it's still a little YOLO with once you go deep. Like with
Oh, yeah.
it's like you either block or you die at some points.
I mean, I feel like that's deep delving in general. Like,
Oh,
I don't know.
I know what
You
mean.
gotta
I know.
die.
Yeah, but
I mean, I
start
hope that it's
with
gonna work out. Then block
Yeah,
is
I
a
think
pretty
it
big
will.
factor, but the thing is, like with cremation, you don't need a whole lot of damage, at least for when you're going deep. Like in general, you don't need a lot of damage when going deep, but with cremation, it bounces off of the wall, so you can use like intensify. It's got a pretty nice clear for that, and it's pretty good for the void sphere too. So I'm hoping that's gonna work out on those endless delve.
No, I'm
strats.
curious to see. I'm definitely curious to see like how well you'll do with that type of build.
Yeah, I really, it's a kind of a shot in the dark. Because last league I wanted to do the Transcendent Cycloner that everybody's doing now, and that didn't get that deep
Nope.
because ore stackers were a thing. But now it seems like the top contender.
Everyone's not doing it.
Yeah, not
There's
everybody.
actually
I know
very
you're
few
not
people
doing
who
it.
are doing it.
Yeah?
So, from what I've noticed, so these are the builds I've seen. So Darky, who's like, he's probably because he has such sick gear as well, so he can pull this off. He's
Yeah.
going max resist, just ordinary champ with berserk. So he's using Perma Berserk as much as possible, 90 res potentially,
Oh.
and the full Fortify effect stacking, so 50% Fortify, something like that, with 90 res. And
Wait, how's he
Berserk.
getting 90 res? What? Dude, take
I
a look at
mean,
this guy.
Okay, so champion. Like the thing is, I was looking at stacking aura as well on champ, but it's like I couldn't. It's like I don't want to get champ, right? It's probably going to be difficult to get the full 90. He's probably going to hit like 88 or 89 or maybe someone than 90. But what you do is you do triple purities. I don't know if you noticed, but champion has aura effectiveness now.
Yep.
A lot of it, right? So it's like you stack those 3. And damage can be solved through harvest with getting really good gear. Like it's a really, really solid build, but it requires like, I think he's getting max res on the chest with elevated mods and stuff.
What main skill is he?
Earthquake.
Oh.
One-hand earthquake.
Wait, he's actually doing one-hand earthquake for it?
Yeah, it makes perfect. It's like it's the best melee skill right now. By far. There's like no other skill that you can scale damage properly compared to that. Not really.
I thought he was just gonna like phase breaker cyclone or something. Shit.
No, because that doesn't do damage. That's the problem. That's why you can't scale it. I mean, compare it to a 550 or something DPS one-hander, you know? And then you take that build versus standard face breaker.
Yeah, I mean, Cyclone has the problem where you can't abuse Exert, basically.
Yes.
Like
it's
you
really
can't,
hard to find the damage.
Seismic and Intimidating are both just busted still. I actually don't think the Earth Shatter changes were like a very big deal at all. I've been playing. I have an Earth Shatter character at 99 now. I've been playing it a ton.
Right.
Earth Shatter is still really, really good. But
Right.
the immediacy of Earthquake's damage comparatively, not having to explode your spikes and all that, I can see that being really powerful for delving in particular.
Yeah. No, it's going to be interesting to see how the skill will perform. And a lot of it will come down to like proper play with Berserk as well, I think. So that's going to be a really interesting one to see. But I mean, having watched Tarke, and he's literally been playing Earthquake for a month straight, you know, blasting every single day the same way. So you get kind of good with the skill if you just do that thing for that many hours.
Yeah, it's insane. The way he can just like play a single skill for that long, like pretty much the same play style, like multiple leagues in a row. Like, yeah, he's gonna get pretty good gear. Obviously, if you're actually using a weapon, the top end is higher. If he's gonna commit that hard.
Didn't he hit a double corrupt for local fizz on like an already really well rolled
two
X?
Weapons pretty much looking pretty much the same. Like it was Dictators with Merciless and a flat fizz roll or something like that. You had 2 of them. So I don't know if he hit any of them. But yeah, it's gonna be very.
He hit
interesting to see.
He hit a local fizz implicit on one of his axes.
So he has a 660 now?
Something like that.
On a one-hander. That's like 2-hand damage for like not too long ago.
Yeah, it's a really solid weapon.
So.
Has some chaos res on it too for good measure.
It's more damage than Edziri's disfavor, that's for sure.
So you have that build. Then there's I think the Raider who's top right now. He's at like 670 or 680 last time I checked. I think he's doing Herald of Agony. Then there's Steel, which I think is just doing the normal Transcendence build with Facebreaker. I'm doing like a BV build with Transcendence and Chieftain. Because we get it's so easy to stack, or it's getting easier again to stack conversion. But since I've been fucking around, as Raiz would say. I was
fucking around too a little bit.
So I'm like, I was late to the party to where I could start accumulating gear. So I settled on building around Formless Inferno. Because it's easier than having to elevate all my mods to get similar mitigation. Because now I can just chase Fire Res. It's much easier to chase that rather than, the mods. So I'm trying that.
I don't even like touch Chieftain anymore without that item. Like Formless Inferno is the most fun. And then you're doing Transcendence too. That's so cool. I like that.
So I'm hoping to hit like 60k armor with Transcendence. without a granite and like 100k with. That's like my dream goal. That would be really sick. Because then, so what I heard is that things start hitting out towards 100,000 LE damage, down at like depth 1,000, right? That's like the number, and I can like mitigate that down to 5,000 or something. That's like that's like the range. It's like I can take one hit, I can't take two. So I'm hoping I'm gonna, because I just got another 6-link of the harvest craft, so I slapped down on my second astral that I'm making with exploded chest. I'm gonna double crop those to see if I can. The thing I'm hoping for the most might actually be crit mitigation, because then I'm crit immune, which makes armor so much better.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important that I hit that. So I'm hoping to do that.
So for this hardcore SSF delve push, like, what is the goal? Like, what are people going for numbers wise?
I think like 1,000 plus. It's gonna be around that area. That's where people just die.
Yeah.
Because the incoming damage is so high. I actually think I think Tarke might actually have the best build for it, just because he gets the most consistent high mitigation.
That's always been champion strength. Yeah.
I love the
Champ is just sick, and he has so many elevated wards now because he's been farming so much Maven, right? And the elevated stuff is so sick.
I don't trust the earthquake for it. I don't know. I love earthquake, but
I know what you mean. Defensively, I would say he has something that's looking really good.
And like, how many people are in the running for this?
10 plus, honestly. Like, it's very hard to take. Yeah. I was looking down the ladder, and people have sick gear. They have good builds, and they're pushing.
Yep.
Okay. What have you been up to, Ziggy?
We did our second characters of the league recently with the intent of going for boss pushing. So I made Divine Ire conversion elementalist ignite stacking stuff. So stacking the cold, the lightning to chaos conversion. And man, I've definitely fallen in love with the new elementalist. It's so well balanced now comparatively for a lot of spellcaster setups. Surprisingly, like, largest amount of mitigation I've had on a spellcaster in a while, aside from just playing mind over matter builds with a crap ton of EHP. But you get the elementalist shields really powerful, so sit around like 4k extra shield against elemental damage there, and then once you get like fizz taken as LE conversion on a helmet and stuff like that, that helps with the fizz mitigation too. But with the golem scaling, you can get like 40-something% fizz mitigation from that. I've got the Fortify Flask tech going on, which is where you have like a foreboding or an enduring flask, and the hardened scars anointment on amulets, which gives like 5 seconds of fortify, and that flask just stays up. So that's proven to be pretty good and carried me through some pretty tough boss fights. Damage is really good, sitting around like 5 million ignite DPS. Satharia, one of my viewers, kind of like simulated it, pushed out to the maximum extent, and you can push something like 15 million ignite DPS now with a setup like this. This, like, Penance Brand and Discharge seem to be some of the strongest ignite setups right now, and you can really get like that plus 10 million ignite DPS range, which is just so comfy for bossing, because you only have to do it once, and then that just keeps burning for several seconds while you dodge, so works really nice. The anoint for Fortify is Hardened Scars, for chat that's asking. It's underutilized tech, I'd say. I know a lot of the hardcore players at the moment are doing the like duel for the Vigilant Strike, 30 seconds of Fortify. But if you don't want to go that route, this route costs an anoint and a flask slot, but it's pretty good though. Pretty good. It's not too bad. And you can put Curse Immune or something on the flask as well for pretty much full uptime on that. It works quite nice.
I've seen a lot of bow builds do that in the past.
Yeah, it's very popular Pathfinder and stuff. Yeah,
it's pretty apparently a popular tech for Pathfinder. I'd never heard of it before this character, actually. I got pointed onto it by, I think, Sathariel as well. And it's proven to be pretty good, because I wanted something that had like a little bit of staying power whilst also having that good ignite bossing DPS that I could give some bosses a proper go, because too many times the new major bosses come out and I haven't killed it in that league, and it's always come down to a later league where I finally get around to doing it. But now I had the goal to kill Maven before this podcast, so it took 5 attempts. We did the first 4 in co-op. It's a very hard fight to learn in co-op because we both did it blind as well, Amy and I. So we didn't look at any videos or spoilers or anything like that. So there's a lot of it's a very unforgiving fight to learn blind, especially in co-op when it comes down to the just hard kill mechanics, like the memory phase and stuff like that. I died to like every single bit of that mechanics in terms of
How
like
does that?
okay. Go ahead.
How does it even work, the memory game with 2 people?
Yeah, I was worried about that too. Basically, both people have to do it successfully. I was worried that like the other person would screw it up or something like that because there's
Yeah.
often very little thought put to co-op in these boss fights. So it's a bit of a mess, the whole fight in co-op, but it works. You just have to both fully succeed. And if one person doesn't, the flame boss keeps growing. So it's
Yeah, I
a
guess
bit
that's
hard,
the
I
best
guess.
way.
Yeah. Yeah, because otherwise you'd have like one person potentially like tripping the wrong one or something. I don't know how it would work otherwise. I guess that's the best way of doing it. But yeah, it's like if you die to every single like little learning phase of each mechanic, you get 6 portals in a fight, right? But when you do it in co-op, you cut that in half, so it ends up taking quite a bit to learn the fight. But no, it's well, I got it done yesterday solo. We haven't done it co-op yet, but I got it done yesterday solo, so that was pretty good.
So what do you think of the fight now that you've done it?
Are we going straight into Maven discussion though?
Yeah,
Or...
go for it. We can circle back around to me and Octavian.
Oh, dude, I'm like still a little undecided. There's a lot I really like about it, like the feeling of the the epicness of the fight and the like lore and character of the Maven and stuff's all really awesome. Visually, I think the fight's mostly pretty good. It gets a little confusing distinguishing some of the orbs from each other as you're learning the fight, especially. Eventually, they like look different, but that can be a little tricky early on. But visually, there's like it's a gold arena with like blue and purple things that are all fairly distinct. So it's visually better than some of the other boss fights I've had recently. But I really can't come to terms with whether I was just frustrated trying to learn the memory game fight because I'm really bad at things like that, or whether that's a reasonable thing to be frustrated. Am I just frustrated because it was hard and I died a bunch of times and it cost me a bunch of money, or am I frustrated because that's a bad mechanic to have in a fight like this? I'm not entirely sure.
So just to go around, I think you might actually be the only one who's done it. So I'm one splinter off doing it. I know Raiz hasn't done it. I know Octavian hasn't done it. Nugi, have you done Maven yet?
No, I'm just kind of holding off. I don't need anything from there.
Okay.
And I'm so focused. I can't having to like remember the memory game right now.
That's fair.
When everything else I'm trying to keep track of.
That's fair.
So stressful.
But like we all know all the mechanics of the fight. Like we all know
I watched several
Yeah,
videos and looked at the fight. Yeah.
Okay. So,
oh god.
I was gonna say, like, just going through like some of the mechanics, right? So her attacks, I think, are all pretty great. She's got like some regular basic attacks that aren't really very scary. She launches a big fireball, which does like a good chunk of damage, but is very easy to distinguish and avoidable. She has call outs for most of her abilities that are all pretty good. She does a barrage that is very dangerous in the same way that Shaper Balls are very dangerous, but even like it tracks you, unlike Shaper Balls, but there's a nice gap between each ball that you can dodge between them, weave between them, or you can completely try and sidestep us. So that both of those are like valid approaches to the barrage. So a lot of that stuff feels really well designed. I think the main thing people are discussing and drawing issue with is the memory phase, which is effectively the circle of the arena is divided into 3 segments. And then she'll go up in the air and she'll signal a series of steps that you have to take between these segments. So it might be like left, top, right the first time. And that's the introduction. It's like 3 steps. And it's like, that's pretty clean and easy, right? So you just have to do the thing that she does. And then effectively what happens is she's summoning a flame blast that'll reach the edges of the arena and pop and one-shot you because it does like, I don't know, 70k damage or something. But the flame blast also, the caveat that definitely killed me a few times is the circle that's expanding is also a very powerful damage over time that will kill you very quickly as well. Even on a character that has a lot of regen like my character. And I think it has a slow as well or something. It felt like it did. So running through that, so you effectively have to go around the outside of the circle and avoid that as well. And the final kind of like danger there is if you succeed the memory puzzle and hit all the right segments, if you're in the circle at the time, it'll explode and still kill you. So you have to succeed while being outside of the circle. So you can't like do a dash through the middle or anything like that for like a desperate last trying to finishing moment. So I think a lot of local players are just logged during that phase. But I was trying to do it with like doing each phase so that I'm not burning a portal so I can beat the
Dan's
fight if I
death
do.
to that is so unbelievably painful. Yeah.
What did he like? Shield charge or dash through? Because I avoided all the.
He basically he does the full memory thing, but then like his foot like barely touches the middle, so he dies.
Yeah.
It's just like.
Yep. So, but she later in the fight progresses to doing 6 steps, and I don't know. Like for me, my brain just crumbles in that situation trying to remember like the 6 movements like that. Actually, like doing it yesterday, I was much calmer than I had been on the previous 4 attempts, and it was a lot easier. Like I did a decent job of remembering, but there was one time where I like, misremembered one of the steps or something like that. Just I don't know. I never played that Simon memory game as a kid.
Did you not have the twist it, bop it, slap it? That was big in the UK.
No, I never played any of those.
Oh, okay.
I don't like those things. So see, I just don't inherently like those sorts of games. I never enjoy that sort of thing. So it being in here is like, it's like, oh, this is a thing I don't really like in a boss fight that's otherwise really cool. So for me, it personally lets down the fight. Maybe some people will love it. And I like ZiggyD trying different and interesting mechanics like this that are challenging in different ways and challenge things that aren't just our gear and builds. So, but I don't know, maybe it doesn't work in a game like this. I'm still very undecided on that. But some people were mentioning the last phase being a mess. I actually really liked the last phase. Once I got over the hurdle of the memory game, what she does in the very last phase is it summons these beams that effectively are like lines, several of them around the arena spinning, but there's like a gap between it and the gap kind of moves back and forth. So there's a bunch of different like misaligned gaps. So you got to do the memory puzzle while weaving in between these gaps in these beams. And that, I actually really like the way those beams are done. Now, they're very punitive if you get hit because I think those disable any healing you have, which is not something we've seen a lot of. And
it's 10
that's really
seconds
brutal.
Of no regen or leech, right?
Yeah, and for some builds, that'll just straight out kill them, which kind of sucks. Like if you're playing Righteous Fire or something like that, you're dead if you touch those. So you might need like a dousing flask to like disable your RF for that phase or something in case that happens. But it's I actually quite like that last phase. Like at that point, I had reached a sense of calm because I had felt like I could do the memory phase well enough, and that added extra challenge was actually like fine. And felt like a good way of scaling up the very end of the fight. Like it had that real good ramp up into like the end of the fight being pretty tough. But at the same time, the brain's gone at that point. So in some ways, it actually got a bit easier. But yeah, no, it's a heck of a fight though. I'll give him that.
Go on, Octavian. I can see you're gonna say something then.
I just wanted to clarify one thing. Are you able to damage Maven during that last phase, like while doing the memory game and stuff, or is she essentially out of?
So that last like segment of the fight is a lot of like is rotating between damaging just fighting the Maven. The brain's gone at that point. Just fighting the Maven and then doing memory games. So she'll do memory games. I don't know if it's like set amounts of health or if she just does them every so often during that. I think I did like 3 memory because I really took my time.
I think it's a cooldown. Because I know some people had like more of those than others.
Yeah, I took my time in that last segment, and didn't like get a lot of damage on her most of the time. I was just focusing on like really staying alive. So I think I had like 3 or 4 memory games in that last phase. So yeah, it's probably, if you can burn it down, it's probably only 1 or 2.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's an aesthetic thing. And a lot of people have said this is the most like World of Warcraft fight we've ever seen. But the entire fight just seems like recycled mechanics from the Nighthold raid in Legion. Like so much of that fight. I don't know, did you raid Nighthold, Nugi?
No.
Oh, okay, I thought you might have raided that. Well, if there's anyone who did raid it, some people will be like, there's lots of like particular bosses. It's like they took that mechanic, and that mechanic. But I don't know how I necessarily feel about that style of boss design. I'm a big fan of when you go back to stuff like Shaper and Elder, then Uber Elder, where it's very clear mechanical. What you see is what you get, and it's basically don't stand in the thing. And I feel like that with a lot of Maven has been kind of designed as like gotcha moments. Like the memory phase seems like a serious gotcha. Yeah. I think the laser, I'm gonna hit you with the laser. Instead of it being the laser kills you, it's you have no sustain for 10 seconds. I don't know, it seems like it's been kind of made in a bit of a weird way.
Yeah, that's I think that's where a lot of my frustration come from. Every time I died to the memory game, I was like really frustrated with it because it felt really cheap. It's like when it's like horror movies that rely on jump scares more on, say, the existential dread or, kind of clawing at your brain sort of stuff. It's like, oh, that's just cheap, man. Come on. You're going to kill me like that? Because, some of my deaths while learning the memory phase, but because I started the memory game phase too early, because she's got like a full 3 seconds after she finished showing you the things before she actually starts it. It's supposed to be so you can get into the right segment, but I was like, because I was like really on edge learning this mechanic and really frustrated with it, she like does the memory phase. She shows you the steps. I'm like, okay, let's go. And I start going. And then she starts it after I've already started going and I screw it up. It's so frustrating.
The more you talk about this, the more I feel like I'm just going to log out. Because you get 30 seconds of grace, you log back in. Just, like,
that's probably the absolute worst part about that. Because I remember Dan was actually like, I think it was immediately or maybe later, like in my chat, and I was asking him, like, dude, doesn't that feel even worse? Just thinking, because when he died to it, like it felt pretty bullshitty because he successfully completed the mechanic and yet he died, which I don't know why that operates that way. But then additionally, it's like a kick in the balls where it's like, dude, you could just log out and like it wouldn't be a problem at all. Like you would have had zero issue. And that must feel so much worse that you're trying to do it properly and then you get punished for it. And I don't know.
I think
It's so weird that it's such a long invulnerability phase and everything, especially with Shaper, because Shaper used to be a 1 minute invulnerability for the purple things. Or maybe it was 30 seconds, long enough anyway. And they changed it to 3. And now it's like 3 or 4.
It's not a lot. Is the point.
Yeah, it's not enough to survive anyway. Like if you're in it, you're in it. So to do this here, it's kind of weird that you can just like dodge it. But at the same time, I don't know. With the memory thing, it doesn't feel like the memory thing doesn't make it so that you're being tested as a player or like your build's being tested. It feels like you're being tested as a human being. And I don't know if I like that.
I don't play games for
that. Yeah. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also a bit odd in the sense that it's the first time that PoE's ever done that, and it's put it into what is now the final boss of the entire game. Like, it's an odd thing to randomly introduce. It'd be kind of like, they, just before you said it's like, have you got your dance pad ready? And you're like, what? No, get the dance pad ready. You want to do this fight, you're going to do the dance. And you're like,
in like 2024, Cyrus 12 is going to challenge you to a checkers match in the final phase of the boss fight or something.
Do you guys see it that way, though? That it is the final fight? Because to me, it feels more like, especially mechanics-wise, like you said before, Elder and Shaper, it felt, and even Conquerors and Guardians, they felt a lot more kind of self-explanatory, while this one that was supposed to be this like Uber Elder style fight feels more like a synthesis boss than anything else, where you kind of just like have to go into it with like a preconceived, I know what this does, otherwise you're seriously going to struggle. And also just content-wise, I feel like Awakener is still the end game, even though it's easier. The natural progression is like more towards it. Not to mention the loot. I mean, Awakener is genuinely like,
I don't know
if
I would agree with
she has
that.
terrible.
I don't know if it's a case of me trying to, because I wanted to get Maven down for this podcast. So I don't know if it's because of like I put a goal on it, but it's a case of, yeah, I need one more Splinter to get the fight. I've done 3 Cirruses now. And it might just be also I'm bored of Cirrus. So maybe it feels kind of disposable. But it feels like everything has been building towards this point. Every time I see the Envoy, every time I see the Maven, it's like, I'm going to challenge this one and I'm going to get it down. So for me, at least, it's felt much more like a natural progression. I'm building up to this big goal. But that could just be me. I don't know.
Even if you just look at how it's intertwined with the rest of the endgame, I would argue that Maven is far more cohesively like core than Cyrus. Like Cyrus and the Conquerors is completely a resident of the Atlas and that system, but like Maven has her fingers in Breachlord content and over there in synthesis content. You've got all this different stuff that Maven is somehow tangentially involved in because she has all the challenges that you can do for those. So if I were like coming at the end game based, and I hadn't done Cyrus yet, or I hadn't done Maven yet, Maven would feel like just as big, if not bigger, apart. You know, she is very core.
Okay. Well, she's like, in a way, like getting to her is more end game rewarding, I guess, as well than like what really Conquerors do. Because like you can get to Maven really quick if you just get lucky with the invites.
Yeah.
You know, just drop like 3 invites of the bigger ones and you're done practically. And I mean, you get a lot more elders and shapers now too, including the guardians and the other guardians. So you can get it done really quick. And I mean, you can't really do Awakener 8 that quick at all.
Actually, that was the
It
point.
is kind of like.
Oh, go.
I was gonna say, like, I felt like that's a little odd. There's a few like kind of oddities in the way that it all scales together, like that, because Maven does kind of feel like the big main endgame boss now, but the natural progression is like it's gonna take a lot longer for a lot of players to actually reach Awakener 8 and do that rather than Maven. But because you fight Cyrus a bunch of times as like smaller versions of himself, I don't think he keeps that feeling of being like the final end game boss, because he's just a guy you fight a bunch of times. Whereas
Yeah.
Maven's like the big thing you work to and do once. You know, like it's the big last thing. Apart from the Uber invitation fight, because that's the only one I haven't done, and that seems like way further away than doing Maven. I don't know, doing Uber Series and all that together.
See, I've had kind of the opposite experience with that, because I've been doing like the Breach Lord stuff, and I've been doing all of that stuff, and not Maven yet. Also, that was one thing I wanted to ask. So apparently, I had people compare this Reddit. If you kill Maven, but you haven't done any of like the Breach Lord stuff, you don't actually unlock the.
Yeah, that's weird.
That seems really bizarre.
Wait, what?
Apparently, if you kill Maven first and you don't do any of like the Breach Lord stuff, you don't actually unlock the Atlas, like the final Atlas thing.
Oh, in the middle.
You get the passives, but you don't like unlock the thing to like spend them.
Yeah, you have to unlock it by doing one of the others.
I mean,
so
honestly,
like, I did Maven, but I didn't unlock the tree. What the?
I'm not fucking surprised. I like a lot about this expansion. Practically everything outside of performance. But the invite system, it is beyond me how they could have fucked up like to this degree. And like they immediately knew that they fucked up, and you know, they were responding to people criticizing for making it such a randomized system. It was super unclear, and like the quest log was not telling you the right thing. It was saying that you have to witness, she has to witness stuff to drop invites, but then she didn't. You could just drop invites anywhere, and then guardians don't have guaranteed drops, so you could just like not drop it. I don't know. They really fucked that up with Conquerors by making it way too random, and now they just like went all out. And then also they clarified apparently before the expansion that like it's a separate system from the Watchstones, but many people are feeling like Watchstones actually help with invite drops too. So I mean, that could just be super tinfoil. Yeah,
it seriously does require Watchstones and everything, which is still sort of intertwined that way. I feel like the invitation system works pretty well now, though. Like doing it now since the patches, you get a guaranteed one the first time you get your 10, so you get your points easy. And a lot of the time, I find that in the process of getting the 10, because I've done some of the ones extra, I get an invitation for the regions. So I have like 1 or 2 invitations for every single region at this point, pretty easily.
I had a question about that. So you can't like store up Mavens, can you? So, for example, I need. Well, no, let me fully explain this, because I don't know if this was me just self-gating myself. So I need to get a Cortex to spawn before I can do the feared encounter. Can I keep doing elders and like bank up Maven witnessed elders? I can't, can I?
No.
Yeah. So that's one thing which has been really annoying me. Is I've had a bunch of content that I've been wanting to do, but I can't do until I finish the circle, and it's really pissing me off in SSF. Because I've had like 3 Elder sets that I'm like, I want to run Elder. I want to get Watcher's Eyes. I can't do this until I get my Cortex. And that's just like, wait until Zana gives me a Cortex. And it's like...
So bad if you want to run Maven and you're just like, well, I have 3 of this thing, but I don't think I have this thing. So now I can't do it because I won't get splinters. And it's like, well, shit.
I actually, on my Inquisitor, my DD character, because it benefits so much from a bottled faith, I was so afraid that, what if I have like these 3 Cortex maps and I ran them, but it doesn't make so we can get all the sauna stuff, right? Get the cortex, but we can't witness through the sauna.
Yeah,
which
sauna's
Oh, you
really
can't
weird.
even witness through
So
that.
what
Oh,
if I
God.
don't drop a cortex for the next month and I want to do the other fight and I've already run all these encounters before? I was like, oh no. So I
Yeah.
have to like witness cortex before I'm ready to do it, and then I'm like, I don't know. It's just kind of weird.
Not to mention that with
I
Cortex specifically, you can just get really bad mods, and
Yeah.
then you're like,
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
you know, I'm screwed either way.
No,
Well, luckily I'm playing DD, so I can do every mod in the game, and it doesn't matter because Cortex doesn't exist to DD.
yeah,
Right, I heard. Yeah.
the for people wondering why Nugi says that, the synthesis zones don't have very many corpses, if any.
They don't
in
have
the
any
data
corpses.
pool. Yeah. So when you desecrate, pretty much your entire desecration pool is super duper high health corpses if you bring a high health specter with you. So
Not
if
pretty
you're
much, it's all.
all of it, all right. So if you're in a synthesis zone, Cortex or any of the other ones, you have like 10 times the damage or something like that.
Yes.
5-10 times. It's a lot.
Probably doing, instead of doing 1.5, I'm probably doing 50 million DPS on my build on Cortex.
One
It's
thing,
a little busted.
one thing that I found really funny that since I've mentioned that you guys all kind of agreed it, but now chat seems to like Tarke just run the content. Why are you being? I think there's a real problem when you've designed your system in a way where the player feels like they're making a mistake by running the content. Like, if it turns out it isn't actually that big of a deal, and I should just run through all my Elder sets, and I'll eventually get my Cortexes when I get them, the fact that I feel like I'm making mistakes and being inefficient is incredibly bad in a game which is all about being efficient. Like,
Yeah.
Path of Exile's a game, like, people stare at Path of Building for hours and hours and hours, and you're just like, but just be an efficient Tarke, it's fine. I don't know.
Yeah, just wait until you get your middle and you're like, well, I want to do Awakener 9, but I also want to do Elder. So every time I want to do literally anything or a synthesis map or whatever, or like I'm running Mass Conquerors for Awakener Orb, now I have to respec every time. And those orbs of unmaking, they don't drop a whole lot. It's like, oh, then it starts feeling really awkward. I don't know. I actually also got hit with a realization that really pissed me off this league, that Conqueror orbs also drop more if you have higher watchstones. So if you want to like limit your maps to a region, like every time you do a Conqueror, essentially you have to put in all of your watchstones, and like the same way it works for Awakener. And the fact that we still can't like lock our awakening level or lock our watchstones to not then like increase the level of the maps and therefore dropping the maps that we don't want on top of everything. Oh yeah, like that is, I don't know, that really hit me hard this league,
Yeah.
I mean,
considering the Maven
Is it-
system too.
especially given now that there's Legion locked watchstones, I can understand
Yeah.
why you can't control click, your generic Crimson or Ruby or whatever kind of color watchstone in to a zone because it doesn't know where it's supposed to go. But if you have a Lyra Arthane watchstone, that is supposed to go to Lyra Arthane. So being able to control click that in would be really convenient.
Yep.
But would you? Okay, let's assume that. Let's say that you could instantaneously plop everything down, right? That would like fix everything. But what if you couldn't after you spawn the? Let's say that you spawn your Conqueror, and then after that point you can't actually. Then it's locked into that certain awakening level, right? Let's say it did that. Would you feel bad about it? If you just didn't have the ability to then put in the stones after? Or would you just be like, oh, that's just the system? Is it just knowing the fact that you could have done it that annoys you?
I don't understand the question. Sorry.
Okay. If you weren't able to actually plug in up to Awakener 8 and alter the drops that the Conquerors could give you, would you be bothered? Then?
Oh yeah. I would be bothered for
You
sure.
made the choice at that point that you're farming with the setup and you just have slightly. So having this like favorite system where you get better maps or more the maps you want, but then it locks you out of having to be or being able to run Awakener 8 Conquerors all the time. Like you still get them leveled up, but they drop a little less. So you made that choice rather than the fact that you know that you could have put in all the stones because now you're aware that you could have done something.
Yes.
I think that like that just the psychological part of that is what's like makes things like these feel really bad. It's because we have the option, but it's so tedious to do. If the option doesn't exist, we're not really we don't really care about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely tedious. That's literally what it boils down to. Because, like, I don't mind fiddling my stuff, but like every single conqueror, I mean, that's a lot of effort. And somebody in chat mentioned that's an SSF problem. It is not an SSF problem. If you want to run a specific map or if you want to run a specific region or whatever, and the game essentially either forces you to put in watchstones every time or take out like all of your watchstones when doing like something else, especially now since regions actually have like identity to them. Yeah, it's really frustrating because it's exactly like what Maven is with the memory mechanic. Like, sure, I can stay in and do the mechanic and everything, but why? I can just log out instead. And this is the same thing where if you don't log out, you feel really bad. The same way if you don't put in your watchstones, you feel really bad. But then it's so tedious and so punishing if you forget or fuck up. And it's like, oh, I really wish that we could just, like click a button and lock our awakening level. I don't know. To me, that would be a lot more comfortable.
But locking your awakening level is also gaining a bonus, right? It's just I want to have the bonus all the time.
I guess it would be the other way around. It would be locking your watchstones so that you could have all of your watchstones put in, but then make it so that they're not only giving you tier 14 plus maps, right? So let's say you would have 4 watchstones in a region, but then you could disable them so it would still drop low level maps.
Yeah,
but
so
it would give you the awakening level.
That would be nice, actually. I think I would agree on that part. The other way around, I don't really see as a big of a problem. I think the other way around is more like it's more like a psychological part of I could have done this and therefore it annoys me. Like, so if it didn't exist, like that option, I wouldn't be bothered. But the other way around would just be nicer overall. I would agree with that. I think to Targe's point, by the way, with the what was it? Something that was bad in PoE when you had that. What was it you said? Just before this.
I was talking about the whole Cortex thing and the inefficient. But I also have it with Breach Lords. I have it with.
I don't know if I can agree with just saying doing something that is not, optimal being a bad thing in PoE. We do it all the time.
To me,
and I think it's important that you have, like for instance, I know it's not optimal if I can't kill every Legion boss in 25 seconds, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can reset them, but I still want to run it because there's an upside of getting what I need out of it for now. But it's going to be inefficient, so I will actually burn some of my built-up currency. So I would. No, but that's what you're doing. You're essentially doing that. You're doing something that is not getting you the maximum result because there is an immediate bonus to it. There is something you want out of it right now.
So I understand what you mean. So basically, the situation that I'm in is I've got a bunch of these I've got a bunch of everything saved up but Cortexes, so I don't want to run them for the Cortex. Same with my Breach Stones. Right. I've got all these Breach Stones saved up, but I don't have the Breach Lord 4-way invitation, so I don't want to run them because it's wasted once you've got it basically the game is dictating when I'm engaging with content.
It's mainly around Maven content that this is about. But you phrased it in a way that any kind of this kind of choice becomes a problem in PoE, where I don't think it's necessary. Like, I think that's overstating that point.
What I was saying is Path of Exile as a game encourages players, particularly players who play as much as we do, to try and maximize things and form strategies as best as we can to the best of our abilities.
True.
Right? So Path of Exile breeds a particular kind of behavior, and the current Maven system goes against that behavior because it's making me do the opposite of what Path of Exile's trained me to do over the last 7 to 8 years. Path of Exile.
The funniest thing about all this, Tarke, is that in order to get that invitation that you're not doing the content because you're waiting for the invitation, you have to do that content to get the invitation.
Yeah.
Because it drops off the Breach Lords.
Yeah,
so your problem would be solved by running more Breach Lords, even though they're the thing you don't want to run right now.
Yeah, it's just, it feels backwards. It feels like there's something...
Well, the thing is, it is assumed that you will drop that invitation out of those Breach Lords, but then everything else would be a bonus. And that's why it feels so bad, because you feel like you should be having it from like elsewhere, but then... At least I found that I could not drop any of the invites for anything without doing the actual content. And then eventually I was like, okay, I guess I'm just going to do 10 Phoenixes in a row. And eventually it dropped and I was like, oh, great. And then it dropped from maps and then I was fucking pissed, okay? Because I wasted all the Phoenixes. And it's like, yeah, well, that didn't feel great, but I got it done. I think what Nugi is saying is really very true. It's the same reason why whenever I was playing trade, people would always be like, yo, dog, why are you so poor? Where's all your currency? What'd you do with your currency? It's like, well, I fucking spend it. The sooner I make my character stronger, the faster I'm going to farm up and power up even more. Like, I don't want to be sitting on a load of currency, right? So this is kind of the same thing.
I completely understand
it's-
that, but one thing I do want to say, which I find absolutely hilarious, is whenever we have this conversation, or whenever I have conversations like this on YouTube, you're like, just trade for it. Just be in Trade League and just trade. It's easy, Tarke. You just trade. Meanwhile, every single complaint, this game is fucking trash. Trade API is the worst Path of Exile has ever been. I've spent the last 8.5 hours trying to buy a single... Just trade, Tarke. It's really easy. Just go on Path of Exile trade and buy the thing that you need.
People are doing trading speedruns and shit.
Yeah.
It's the whole thing. Pretty great.
So good.
I think there's some kind of middle way has to be struck, because I do think, you know, the player making the choice that I'm doing something that is not optimal right now is a good thing. You know, having to go through that thought process of like, do I want to do this right now? Okay, I'll take my chance here or there. But whenever, especially in SSF, you know, where you exacerbate the problem where things are RNG and you might only have 10 of one thing, you run out of all those 10 and then you find the, you know, and you had an excess of those, you run them all. Then a week later, you have none of them because they never dropped again and you have 10 of all the others. And you're like, I'm stuck.
Yep.
So it's like, it's a very much an SSF problem as well. Like with it creating this more so on SSF than other places, because it's, you can go through the nuisance of trading. You can actually do it. It's not like that's not impossible. Like however annoyed you will be, you'll be less annoyed by not having, like by having it rather than not having it, even going through trade.
Maybe maybe we just need an orb of remaking, like the orb of unmaking, which is basically a Horizon orb, but for Maven invitations.
I think it's also it's one of
Ooh.
those things that we need to keep in mind that GGG designed the system this way, and this is a result of the way they designed it. So you shouldn't excuse design, because they could have just made it a generic invite. They could have had it so that we just have a generic invite and we chose what we used it on. Like, there are ways around it, but they made this very specific system which has these specific problems with this system.
I can bet any amount of money than the way invites work right now, at least, maybe not the concept itself, was like a last minute something happened, we have to change this. It's either too RNG or not RNG enough. I don't know. Because like everything, even the way like you get taught to do things with the Maven while progressing through the Atlas and actually dropping the quest items and like going through the quest log, that points to a completely different end result. She has to be there to witness to drop the invite. That's not the case in the end setup. Initially, it didn't drop a guaranteed invite at all, which is super surprising. And then on top of it, the way the quest log is designed is that, well, now it has a guaranteed one, but initially it would count down the amount of witness Maven maps you needed to get the invitation. That's literally what the quest log would say, and it would say like, you need 4 out of 10, or you need 1 out of 10, and then it would get to 0, and it would just delete the line. It would just not show anything anymore. Not how many more you need, like what you need to do. It would just say, you have to witness more Mavens. Maven has to witness more bosses for you to drop the invite, which is not the case. It doesn't work like that. You don't have to do that at all.
Why do we even...
They had to change something last minute.
But why do we
They have
even
to.
need invitations to be an RNG system? Surely it should just be, you ran the content, here's the thing. Like, that's the thing, because that's how it works. Because like the way it works early on is like, you need to kill 4 bosses, you killed 4, here's the guaranteed thing. Like, why do we need to do this this pantomime of bullshit?
I think they were trying to take a cue from the map system, where it's got this layer of RNG, which then adds some value to the items themselves in the context of a trading situation.
But why?
Because they
But
specifically
what is the
wanted
upside?
this end game to be tradable. I'm not sure.
Well,
but that's my guess as to why.
be fair, bossing is far more rewarding in a trade league right now than it has been almost ever, and invitation is a huge part of that. Like the expected returns of doing breachsword bosses, for example, is much higher now because they can drop invitations that are worth quite a bit of extra currency. So bossing right now is like the most rewarding it's been in Path of Exile in a long time. And so that's definitely an upside there. So there is some upside to the system.
I do. I
don't
personally
necessarily
like
disagree with
the even on SSF, like the bit of RNG. You know, I'll run a zone. Oh, I'm out of these. Have encouraged me to do something else. Right? Rather than getting stuck in this, like I'm doing this over and over and over again, and I'll just sit here all day. I can't run out of my resource, and I'll build it up again over time by doing other things in the atlas.
But like in the
Like
case
the
of
resource, you mean invites?
Yeah.
But, like-
I ran out of like proximate invites, for instance.
no, but
I
that's
was like, okay.
that's specifically that I'm talking about. Like
Right.
you've killed Shaper, you've killed Uber Elder, you've run like if I've killed all the Breach Lords, it shouldn't be a case of just keep running Breach Lords until I eventually get a Breach invite. Like the challenge and the hard bit is getting the content in the first place and running it.
Back in the day, literally everything in PoE has worked this way over time.
Yeah, but it's not good. It's not a good
Well,
system.
that's the thing. Like that's how they released Conquerors, and they immediately recognized that it was a mistake. Like they changed it pretty freaking quickly to a system that still has RNG because the amount of maps that you need to do to get to a Conqueror is different, but it's not what it was initially, where it was just like,
Right.
go fuck yourself with 200 maps. He's not spawning, and you don't know what you're doing or where you need to go. I mean, my perspective in particular is a little bit skewed considering I ran 250 fucking maps without dropping an invite. Had a 94.5 and then a 93 character when I dropped my first invite to any content. So, you know, like that's a yeah. I mean, clearly,
invites,
I'm assuming
right?
that was a bug or something, but like, holy moly, you know, if that's something that genuinely happens to people. Like, I don't know, dude. I don't want to see that in PoE.
I have to imagine that's a bug.
I'll also
It must
never
have been, I
defend
don't know.
any system which is, well, this is how we've always done it, because that's the same reason why we've got little towns in the Midlands who do racist festivals. We've been painting our faces black and marching the streets for generations. It's part of our culture. Like, fuck off. Like, no.
You literally made the same point earlier, that the game has been teaching me this for 8 years. Why are we now doing it differently?
Well, no.
True.
Well, to
It's
be
just like-
fair,
That's
It's you.
Go on, Octavian. Go on,
to be
Octavian.
fair,
Get it.
like I would say the RNG of Tarke's example, if you run all 4 Breach Lords and you don't have an invitation, you have to just go back and keep running Breach Lords. That's basically the corollary to that from previous content would be at Ziri and Uber at Ziri, right? You know, you run Uber at Ziri a dozen times, you don't or you run at Ziri a dozen times, you don't necessarily have an Uber at Ziri set. You just kind of keep going until she decides to give you some. Though at this point you can get the fragments from tons of other content, but just purely looking at the bossing. But that isn't the way it's always been, because even if you go back to some other relatively old content, Shaper, you run each of Shaper's Guardians, you guaranteed you have a Shaper now. And so like there isn't one consistent line through all of PoE's content over the years as to one way or another that we do this. You know, Shaper has been consistent and Ziri has been inconsistent. There's been times where Conquerors have been inconsistent. Now they're pretty consistent. And so I don't really think that the argument holds water either way, because it's just PoE doesn't have a consistent way of doing this.
I get it. That's when Maven doesn't drop any fucking items. She only drops shit, because we went from little RNG to access the content to then have RNG whether the item drops to now having RNG whether we access the content or not. It's like they're doubling down on the all situation. That's what it really is. Makes sense to me.
Also, to go back to what Nugi said, is the got him moment. I think there's a very big difference between
you.
No, shut up. there's a
He's defend himself. Hold on.
I think there's a very big difference between taught behavior and then the content you put into the game. So when I was saying like ZiggyD's been encouraging a certain type of gameplay and a certain type of behavior out of me, it's the same way that if you feed a dog at 6 a.m. every morning in the same place, he knows where his bowl is and he goes, I go here for my food, right? If you then change the food for something like razor blades, but you're still feeding him at 6 a.m., right? That's asking for problems. Don't do that. That's horrific. Please don't do that. But there's
feeding your dog. Okay, I'm gonna run with this analogy. Just a little.
No, pick a different one, please.
If you have been feeding your dog, like I don't know, like I don't know what dogs
People,
eat.
babies.
Don't hate. it for not
Keep
knowing
it
what
going.
dogs eat.
Right,
Let's just say
YouTube
chicken,
monetization is gone. Right, go
Yeah,
on. Yeah.
that's dumb.
Your
Right?
dog chicken, right? It likes chicken. It keeps eating chicken,
Right,
and then you start feeding it. I don't know, beef.
right.
That's not bad. It's just different, right? Or maybe you
What are we
feed it.
talking about?
I
you
don't know.
What are we
I
even
get it, I
talking about
get it.
anymore?
The switching to you don't need to switch to razor blades, and it's bad because you fed it chicken before. Like you don't like the switching to
Yeah, but
something else. Is
The
not
problem is
else.
that he's not getting fed beef right now. He's getting fed chocolate, and chocolate kills dogs. So Tarke's,
Yeah, yeah.
might as well be razor blades. Come on.
Anyways,
God.
hey, Tarke, how's your league been going so far? Because I don't think we ever got to that.
Yeah, so my league's been going okay. So after the last podcast, we were talking about Toxic Rain and Deadeye, and I can't remember how we came up. We were talking about Pathfinder, how much Raiz hates Pathfinder. And then I was saying that Occultist is actually like really good for those builds, but no one plays it like that anymore. So I ended up making an occultic Corsica character, and it has been absolutely demolishing all of the endgame. And I'm looking forward to Maven giving me the correct invites so I can run more Maven content, because so far it's just face rolled through everything. It's really good. Frigid Wake is like super slept on because I use skitterbots. I chill everything. So every 4 seconds I freeze everything, which is really good on a dodge based build. So I've got like 6k life, Acro Phase Acro, Wind Dancer, temp chains with Bane enhanced, so it's got like crazy quality, and bosses are super slow, and yeah, all the Maven content I've been able to do so far has been a complete joke on it. It's been really easy.
Right, I gotta address this because they finally released a patch notes preview, and one of the lines is addressing the forever now bugged Arcane Surge on Hierophant
Nice.
and all Arcane Surge builds. It's very cool. I like it. A month in, I can finally play my league starter. Let's go.
Every time they release new patch shows, like Raiz is crying in the corner. They still didn't fix his Arcane Surge. Like every time you'll see like a couple comments in there.
Yeah. It's because they
worked,
I
it
don't
worked.
know. I hate the because they really baited us, Normally they don't address this stuff or they put it on the list, but they said that it's already fixed, and then they said that they're gonna fix it soon, and then they said that they're gonna fix it soon, and then they said that they need to fix it when the server restarts. Then they didn't respond when the server restarts, and then the server restarts in 2 weeks, and surprise, now it doesn't restart in 2 weeks, it restarts in like 10 days. So, like if I would have stuck with the class, it would have been fucked. I feel like it sucks either way because they were trying to be like helpful and address it. But
Yeah.
through that, I feel like a lot of people kept playing a class that realistically should have never been in the state that it was, because, Hierophant's already kind of a weird class, and they just made it worse through this bug. That was, by the way, already in the game in the past. They fixed it, and now they reintroduced it. And apparently that was hard to fix too. So yeah, I hate the fact that I'm like, they're fixing something, boo-hoo, because I'm glad that they're fixing it. It's just, 4 months. I just wish stuff like this would be out earlier, at least for these niche classes, because it always feels so like you feel neglected, man. Like when it's a champion, it's got a bug, and a raider or whatever is popular, right? Then they're like, okay, fixed. But then Hierophants, that's just getting fixed for a month. Cremation was getting fixed for 3 months. Like, yeah.
Aw.
But I understand that there are other things that need fixing. There's a lot of performance issues and whatnot. So I'm sure that
that's
they were doing
a
the best
good
with what they
segue.
had.
Performance is terrible still. Is anyone having good performance?
Yes, I am.
What's a performance, dude? It's been so.
I hesitate. I mean, my game isn't crashing anymore. I have really long load times, and the textures are weird a lot of the time. But that is massively preferable to random hard crashes. So it's an improvement.
I've gained micro stutters from the latest patch, like really bad constant micro stutters. It's really fun.
Damn.
I went from not having been able to use the Vulcan in 9 months after Delirium. I couldn't use Vulcan anymore. It crashed me again and again and again. I've crashed like 3 times since I switched. That was like since they did the last. So that's what? Almost a week ago?
Yeah.
I don't
About
know.
that.
It's like something
5
like that.
days
And
or
I'm
something.
basically not. Yeah, I haven't crashed since. For the first time. In the beginning, I had 30-second load screens. They've gone down
Yep.
well now. That was like, whoa, is this our life now? And I'm not getting the starters anymore, so I don't know. For me, it actually they finally fixed it for me on my system. So I'm very happy.
Still getting really bad texture pop in. Whenever I use Bane, I flashbang the screen, and I still have just really bad stuttering. And it's the thing which makes the stuttering even better is Path of Exile's done a really good job with the last few leagues of introducing mechanics which disable parts of your movement. So you sometimes are like, am I stuttering, or is this a mechanic on the floor that's slowing me down?
The best one is when you have both of them on you and you like can't jump, but then you can't move. It's like, oh, fuck, what is going on?
The new rituals, the vines that you guys are probably alluding to here with the foul rituals or whatever they're called, accurate name. So I was messing with the mana cost, doing a bunch of minus mana fixes and trying to see how much mana regen I needed on the champion that I league started with in order to balance it just right. And so I went into a map to test it, and I was like, oh shit, I can't dash around. Okay, I must be running out of mana then. And so I went out and changed some stuff, came back in, still couldn't dash around, went out, changed some stuff, came back in, and realized, oh, I've been doing foul rituals. My dash costs 0 mana. I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
I spent like probably 20 C and a few scours on re-rolling crafts to try and get the right crafts to balance it. It just kept not working because I kept going back in to test on foul rituals.
You were real committed, damn.
If fixing foul rituals, hold on, I need to look at these patch notes.
What do you mean fixing? Like this is.
I don't know.
I mean, this is the intended mechanic. They're supposed to do this.
Apparently, they're fixing the Maven not giving you the passive point, the passive tree either. If you kill her, apparently you're gonna be able to get it now.
Foul ritual encounters will now only apply toxic vines if you stop moving during the ritual encounter. See, it's one of those things where people will sometimes have a go at like certain devs at GG, like, oh, they've designed this just to screw over the players, and like with especially when it comes to like on death mechanics and stuff. But there are just some mechanics which just aren't fun, and there has been a few things recently. It's just been like, what did you think the reaction to this would be? Because I like really punishing mechanics. Like, I like pre-nerf Delirium, I like pre-nerf Syndicate. I'm usually the last person to be like, yay, nerfs. I like the game being like super difficult, super punishing. But there's been a lot of just random mechanics, which is like, that's just not fun. That's an anti-fun mechanic.
I mean, I think on the other side of the spectrum, an example of a really good ritual is the Vol one. Like, with the Ziri that shows up and the storm calls and the flame blasts, like that is something I actually do have to pay some attention to.
No,
you probably don't get one shot by a storm call landing on you, but it's worth paying attention to and trying to avoid, because maybe that happens right as you walk into a lightning mirage or something.
Yeah.
So it's a mechanic that you do have to care about, but it doesn't feel awful to play around. And also it's great and thematic.
It's because the Ziri is the best designed boss in the entire game, dude. That's really all there is to it.
True.
Ziri is the queen.
Yeah. I like Shaper quite a bit, but Ziri's quite good.
I never liked the transition of
better.
Shapers. The Shaper running around thing has always been Resident Sleep for me.
To me, the big problem is that they never fixed like the graphical issues. For instance, if you're getting like bowled through a beam, that's a pretty big problem, that you just can't see the balls. I mean, I can understand that that would be through design, but why would you design it so that he very inconsistently throws balls at you when you're in melee range? Like, how does that work? That shouldn't be happening.
Where they go off in random directions, you mean?
Yeah, and it's like, it's stuff like that that really Ziri I don't feel has. She has like the perfect amount of like get out of it RNG, and I don't know. It's the RNG that works, because people really didn't like RNG on Awakener, so that got changed. There's some RNG, I guess, when it comes to Maven as well. But then, because like the memory game shifts, but also I think it's patterned. Like, it's not random. It's like a different series of patterns.
What do you mean for RNG in the Ziri fight? Like, just random which clone you have to focus and avoiding the mirror, or what?
Yeah, so basically, where the things spawn, it's where like the attacks spawn, I guess, and I also suppose it would be the positioning of the clones, where it's RNG, where you have to adjust to the way you've been doing the fight, but it's not the sort of RNG that really either makes the fight super easy or super difficult. Because with Shaper, that's absolutely the case, where you might do Shaper and he's gonna, in the last phase, he's gonna spawn 3 clones that auto attack, or in the last phase, he's going to spawn 3 clones that like ball or beam, and that makes the fight significantly more difficult. And it's the same thing for when you're adding Maven on top of that, which is like absolutely should not work.
I mean,
that
how do you
way.
feel about, because I did Maven Uber at Zeri yesterday with clones, and that wasn't very fun. I was gonna ask, how do you guys feel about the whole like Maven endgame bosses? The disparity in the things that Maven can do and not do is kind of hilarious. So like my Maven Shaper was a complete joke because I didn't get anything spooky, and then I uploaded the kill video because I've just been uploading all my boss kill videos. Be like, this is rubbish. I got like clones and heals and clones and heals and da-da-da.
I had the same thing, yeah.
And then when I did my Maven Elder, it was actually, I don't know how I got out of it, but it was a clone and it did a slam during the sucky suck. I don't know if I had like 0.001 millisecond dash or my dodge just high rolled, but like I swear I must have just like dodged it, but like just as like a mid, it's yeah.
I think so the way that the Maven works is like in each map that you find her in, she picks a few of her abilities, and those are the ones that she'll just use over and over again. I feel like in the end game content, she shouldn't pick a tool set. She should cycle through everything that she does slowly.
Yeah.
So you have the full suite of Maven abilities.
That would be a lot better. Shaper's a complete mess when she clones him. Oh my god. I did it twice. It's the first one we bricked. But so the clones will kill Zana during the portal ad phase. So that you have no Zana during the bullet hell. They will beam you during the bullet hell. The bubble doesn't protect you. And she seems to spawn multiple clones, even in the first phase. The first phase of the Shaper fight, you'd think she'd only spawn like 1 clone, but she spawns 2 of them. Because he was doing his portal phase. Meanwhile, I was getting beamed and balled from 2 separate locations.
So basically, roll a different Shaper set if she decides to spawn clones in hardcore.
Probably.
Pretty much.
Four more fragments.
I got lucky and my fight was still pretty difficult, but I didn't get the clones, and it was like, oh, okay. But then I can absolutely imagine, like, if you get the clones, it's just that has to be a nightmare.
It's
I mean, not to mention that it just
crazy,
breaks.
but it kind of ruins how good that fight is. Like, because Shaper's a really like clean fight, apart from some kind of long invulnerability phases. Shaper's a pretty like clean and well designed fight that works really well nowadays. But the clones really like destroy a lot of the mechanics of the fight and make it quite a bit of a mess. So it's kind of a shame in that way, like, because if that's the like thing we're always going to be trying to do, eventually do Shaper with Maven witnessing, and that fight is permanently from now on scuffed.
Yeah,
which is eschews the good design of the fight. Unfortunately, kind of throws that away.
It's kind of touching. It kind of touches on like the previous point that we were talking in circles earlier, which is that like, you can make the argument that you just click the Maven beacon and turn it off, and then you don't have to bother with that. But then you're not being as efficient as you could, and that feels a little bad every time.
Well, even beyond efficiency, it means you're not earning the like. If your goal is to then go on and do the fear invitations after that, you're not earning the thing that is also your goal. So like later on down the line, let's say you've progressed to the point where you're like, okay, now I'm farming the hardest thing in the game, the feared invitations. That means every single time you do Shaper from now on, the fighter's got a chance of just being completely scuffed when it spawns clones and it destroys the mechanics of the fight. So it seems kind of a bummer.
I like the Maven. Oh, go on.
I definitely agree that since this is the top fight that we have to encounter, like before they kind of, I mean, it must be because they're trying to do so many things at once. Because when it was Uber Elder and Shaper, right, that finally got combined to like the Uber encounter, they could reiterate on that one fight and make it good. But because they're doing so many different combinations, they have to go in and reiterate on all of them over time. I guess like I would probably hope that if this is the end game encounter we'll have for the next cycle of expansion, which it probably is. With Awakener 8 was our thing for a while. Uber Elder was a thing for a while. Then it was Uber Elder and Awakener. But now this is kind of like the next tier. They would hopefully clean them up a bit. I can see that.
It's weird too because like Shaper specifically, it's such a big fight, and then they did pay attention to a lot of the smaller boss fights where sometimes the big bosses don't necessarily use their abilities, the ones that are like location locked, like for instance with I don't know Eradicator or well any of the Conquerors or any of the Guardians for Shaper and Elder. They sometimes will just not use the really like hard zoning abilities. So it seems like they put quite a lot of thought into it. But
Mm.
then yeah, when it comes to Shaper specifically, I feel like the ball is kind of dropped in that way.
I mean, I've heard different things from different people, and especially depending on what build they play and what fights they encounter, whether they will literally call a fight bullshit or really fun, or if it counters your build, it's not fun. But with how much variety we have in bossing, I do think, and with how strong players are getting, with all these tools we have, I don't think having certain things counter your build is a bad thing, especially when you can basically pick and choose what set you are creating or that you're pushing for.
But it's not it's not a guaranteed counter though, because you don't know what skill set you're going to get until you go into the fight.
No, but like for instance, like the Breach Lords one, for instance, right? If you don't have good fist mitigation on hardcore and ult blows up, you're dead.
Yeah.
Right? Or if Degen is your worst enemy, like anything, I'm like dreading going into Shaper right now because his beam against the Transcendence build will completely destroy you. Because you have so low res under the hits, right? And so for each of these fights, there will be something that'll mess up a build. I can think of builds that could just stand in the beam as well, right? And the Shaper fight will be super easy. But I don't know if I like that it's just messy.
That's what Maven does in the Shaper. And the Shaper fight in particular, I think, has a couple of tweaks that would really improve it. Shaper already has a mechanic where he summons clones, obviously. And if Shaper goes into the bullet hell phase, those clones will vanish, even if their timer hasn't fully played out. And that's because in designing the fight, they were presumably playtesting it and made aware of the fact that it feels a little BS when a clone that you can't do anything about to dodge fires at you while you're trying to stay in a safe bubble away from a bullet hell. So I feel like if you just make it so Maven clones can't be summoned and also disappear when the bullet hell starts, there you go. Half the mess of the fight is taken care of. Because Maven right now is breaking the fight's own rules on how it's supposed to operate. Which, yeah, it adds a challenge, but not a interesting challenge. It crosses the line to bullshit territory.
Yeah, basically. I mean, it's the same thing like what I said, what happened to me, where I got frozen while Elder in the middle of an Elder slam. Like getting rid of the cases where you have no control of your character, probably shouldn't double slam you and stuff like that.
Just log out, lol.
Yeah.
Easy, dude.
Is it
game is balanced around logging out, don't you know?
Something to deal with, like basically I don't know, like you have a series with a reflect. You'll have things grabbing you and you will take damage, or if you're too slow you can't move, or there are certain abilities that just kind of counter your build.
That reminds me of how Terrence died with the reflect mob.
Oh, that was
Maven spawns random
that one
map bosses.
Yeah, I mean Maven is not supposed to have reflect, therefore reflect shouldn't.
Yeah, they already
deleted it.
Yeah. So,
but to anybody that doesn't know, Maven spawns like a random set of bosses, and it spawned the race course boss, so he just like instantly killed himself.
I think there's merit to what you're saying, Nugi. Like there should be checks in the game that are pretty build specific that you have to work around, but like you draw the line somewhere.
Of course. I hear a lot of sentiment for this. Like, if I can't just run around and dodge everything, the fun is not fun for me. And I'm not a fan of the just run around and never get hit kind of. It's the same thing with the memory game, right? It's like, if you just run around all the time, then the entire fight is kind of done. Versus it's a mess in the end, and I managed to pull through it, and I'm constantly getting hit and all that. That's the fun part. The dodging everything and never seeing my health bar move it's not that fun.
Sorry, I play Caustic Arrow. I don't understand any of what you've just said. All I do is I just run in circles and press a button every 3 seconds. I don't understand.
I'm surprised that you're bringing up that point specifically, Nugi, because I remember you, and I understand that PoE is different, but maybe you could highlight it more, because you really praised the Media and Excel for that in the past, right? But I don't think that was like in a hardcore circumstance where like you basically get one shot by everything.
It's like that game does not work for that.
Okay, yeah. So it's just a matter of that.
It's like it's really fun, but I could not play. I mean, even in median, you make it to where you certain fights in median you will just out sustain, because you basically spec fully into vitality and you just live through it. But the point to surviving is basically you completely respec into that fight, and then you can do it. It has complete bullshit mechanics, but the game is meant. It's meant that you die. You know, again and again and again. That's just how it's made.
I mean, you could say that about current PoE too. Just like, who cares about hardcore, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is like taking it to the extreme, and I don't think that would be healthy for PoE. Median is a game of its own, and I wouldn't argue for that level of stuff in the game. And there are things in median where, you know, it'll straight up bullshit you all the time. It's not like you can just run around. It'll just bullshit you and you die.
Okay.
Does anyone have anything fresh they want to bring on this conversation, or should we go into the harvest conversation?
Yeah, I wanted to double back to, we briefly touched on Zana, and I think it like says a few things. The current like atlas with the passive trees is like really spicy. It's sick. I freaking love it. But it really highlights the fact that Zana doesn't get the effects of the atlas or the Maven witnessing or any of that stuff. Really makes me kind of hate Zana a lot right now, which is a real bummer, because getting like cool maps off Zana in the past was always really great. But now even getting like a distant memory or something, you feel like, so I tried the nodes on the center tree in the atlas that really spice up the distant memories and all that stuff, the synthesis content, including the one that like doubles the map modifiers and makes them spam synthesize items out, and you guaranteed triple implicit drops and stuff like that. But then you get a Zana one, and it's like none of that works on it. That's such a bummer. That's such a bummer. And not to mention, the most likely way to get Cortex is through Zana, and you can't get your Cortex witness or anything like that off of it either, only off of actual drops, like actual physical maps. So the no witnessing of Zana and the lack of any like interaction with all these awesome new Atlas mechanics we have feels like a real bummer for Zana. I don't know, she's like,
yeah, but then you're getting so many Guardians, and you said that like bossing can be pretty rewarding right now. I mean, right, to most people, I think it boils down to like, is a harvest? No? Okay, next. Like if they're actually farming Zana. But at least on SSF, it makes a pretty big difference with the Guardians. And if like the Guardians still do something, you know, 2-3 months into the league where people are still gathering invites, maybe like that, it could be useful. I do like the fact that it's a trade-off, you know, that you can't have like everything from that, and like by running Zana you're sacrificing something else, or by not running like the extra conquer spawning stuff or like the extra awakener level, you're trading off for doing something. I can see it being really like, how much are unmaking orbs on softcore trade? 10C?
Yeah.
And Exalt is how much?
100-ish, I think. No.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's, yeah, then that's really manageable. I'm pretty surprised. I would have thought that they would have been a little bit more expensive. Don't drop a whole lot.
Like cheaper early on?
They were 5C briefly, but they've been pretty consistently around 10.
Right.
Okay.
Now that people are like using them to respec the center tree, I think that keeps them at 10. It's like it's consistent demand as people change between content they're doing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't think that's a good system though. I don't know what you guys think. The whole like respeccing the tree in the middle and building up one and then doing it and then respeccing into another thing.
You think it's a good system?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I like it too.
Like the Zana is, I'm kind of like, I feel forced, especially on SSF, to pick it, but I don't find it very interesting.
That's just a knock-on effect.
I feel the Zana one is actually kind of cheap in terms of what it does.
I agree with that.
It's just a knock-on effect of Harvest being so insane.
Before we
Like-
get into that,
Like everything that even like I won't go too far, but everything that just tangentially touches harvest instantly becomes elevated a few points in terms of how powerful and valuable it is. Like everything.
before we get into that, because that's like I really want to talk about. I one thing that I do feel is a bit lame is I like respecking the middle atlas, but at least with the current wording on how much of the wording is vague, I do wish I had more points of unmaking to respec just the actual individual region stuff, because there are lots of things that from the wording you're like, oh, this seems like it'll be really good, and then you take it and like, this is absolute trash. I would never want this. Or like the other extreme would be the Valdo's Rest Harbies have reinforcements. Like you look at that and you go, oh, well, that shouldn't be anything that fancy. And then you see someone has it and you're like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It really should read Wall of Blue Flesh.
Yeah.
Would it be sensible to have like a lesser unmaking orb for the, maybe you could recipe down an unmaking orb for the.
I don't know if I'm just crazy, but I'm pretty sure before the league started, there was a response to a post on Reddit from the GGG community team or Bex or somebody at Grinding Gear, saying that during the course of the Maven quest line, you'll get a few respec points for free, and then the Orb of Unmaking drops with roughly the rarity of an Exalted Orb. And we didn't get those. I actually like planned around my league start hoping to get, maybe 4 points for each region for free. I wanted to try some of the lesser stuff and then spec into the stuff I thought was good. And then I was stuck with the lesser stuff until I got orbs because I'd never got any free points like I thought I was gonna. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I just imagined that.
Yeah, I think I've had 4 unmaking orbs so far in SF. I do feel like, obviously, with time, we'll learn what things do. I'm assuming there'll be some balance passes to it. But I think that there should be a little bit of playing room with letting players experiment a little bit with it, And there's a reason why we get some regrets just through going through the quest. It's important that you let players have a little bit of experimentation.
I was extremely positively surprised by the Atlas passives. I thought, like, it's a thing, it'll be there, won't dictate too much necessarily. Like, I didn't put much thought into it, but yeah, it's probably the most enjoyable part of it, including, like, the Watchstones. I fucking love the Watchstones. And it's not because they're, like, insanely good necessarily. It's because I don't fucking have to do Conquerors a million trillion times,
Same.
okay? Oh,
I've only done
that's
Forest
so
twice,
good.
and I'm at Awakening 8.
It's
so good.
bad when like you prefer to pick out a single map 10 times from your from your map tab, and like you prefer to run 10 different maps in a row than to do like another like series of conquerors. Oh my god. And then like imagine fucking up on one of the conquerors and now you can't drop because you've already obtained all of the things from that region. So now to spawn like the next one, you have to do an entire set of new ones to get like the series spawn. It's like, oh my god, so punishing, so awful. So I really like it.
We can run half the amount of regions, right? Because we get another additional 4 for each region that could then just be placed somewhere else, and then you can place the 4 you get. That's
You don't
really
have to drop a single one.
No, you can't place them. I guess you can get lucky and get the.
You just need 4 Watchstones, as far as I know. Everything else you can drop from the.
Yeah, because you can bounce those 4 Watchstones around the Atlas.
From Maven, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you have to do Maven or one of the invites, like the bigger invites, to get the random drop, right?
Yeah, but you just need 4 for that, and then you can go farm them up as much as you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to run. But what my point is that you can't just sit in one region.
Well,
right?
I suppose.
But my point here is that if you do Conquerors and you collect Watchstones, you could do your 4 specific regions that you really like, and you really hate the other regions, and you take your Conqueror Watchstones and place them over the other regions, and you never have to go.
Yeah.
That's my point, that you don't actually have to go to a different region that you might not like at all or set up for ever.
Yeah, sure.
I think
that's a great point.
That was what I meant with having only to run half the regions.
Yep. But then you have to do like technically at least 10 maps from that region every time you want to do it, and then Not
Yeah.
every region has good 10 maps, and yeah, I mean it's a trade-off, but I really, I in particular really like it.
No, I like it too.
Plus the passives are great as well. Yeah, and I'm surprised about how they, for the most part, they like all feel good. You know, I never feel like something's not doing anything for me. Even the beasts and stuff, like, yeah, everything that I've looked at actually felt like it could make a difference for my experience right now, and I'm trading off by not running that region or that section of the passives.
I really
nice.
like running
Except
You,
breach, fucking breach.
The breach nodes in Lyra Arthane are actually pretty fun.
Maybe
love
I just
it.
haven't had anything breach related to do, but yeah,
Like a more
maybe.
open map. I think Castle Ruins is down there. It's enjoyable.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
the one that have you tried the Alva nodes in Glennock yet?
Yep.
The
They're
ones
insane.
the ones
Yeah.
that replace all of the packs with at least magic ones.
It's
Do
great.
that. Do that. Roll a map for really high rarity. Throw in a Gilded Reliquary Scarab
Yep.
and just go to town. Maybe throw an Infused Nemesis if you have that.
Oh,
Headhunter drop.
Saying how much they drop.
Every single Alva dropped like 15 uniques for me. It was great.
yeah, I remember people were doing something with that.
Harvest
Yeah,
also
Harvest.
just super duper juices rarity. So if you luck into a harvest while doing it, you'll also get tons more from that too.
And Harvest. I spoke about this a little bit in a video recently, but I'm getting really sick of Harvest, and I think this league, with the combination of the whole Maven thing and the combination of the whole Harvest thing, so much of Path of Exile is getting in the way of me trying to play Path of Exile. Like, I'm trying to actively enjoy myself, and the game is just like, Tarke, fuck you. Harvest is one of the most powerful things in the game, and it's some of the most stale content. If you love the current iteration of Harvest, fine. You cannot tell me it's enjoyable. It is incredibly tedious. You're proccing Zana over and over and over and over and over again to randomly get a garden which has a bunch of not very interesting encounters in there, and then whenever you get a Sharby, you're sad, which is ridiculous. Whenever you get the super rare final boss, that's bad. Like, that is a complete failing. Like, that is a complete failing.
I fucking love Harvest. I am. I love it. To me, Harvest accomplished exactly right now what, in my opinion, Nugi was like making it into in the actual Harvest League. Because I remember when we were discussing it, like he was saying that it's the journey, it takes time, you get there. I feel like that's the case right now. People go, look at this insane fucking axe that Darky made, or Alkaiser made a better axe on SSF than I'm ever gonna have on Trade League. It's like, yeah, motherfucker, he's been farming for a month straight, 16 hours a fucking day with the same goddamn meta build. It's like, hell yeah, he's gonna have some accomplishments, and it should be that way. Like, you should be able to do that. But I don't think it's nearly as impactful for the average player as people make it out to be. Understand that you can trade for it, and I can understand the point with it being like sort of tedious at times, but yeah, even the wastefulness is starting to feel better and better for me. Where like the tank craft, I thought it was a really bad idea. The more I play it, the more I just kind of accept that sometimes something's gonna go away and I have no choice, and I'm picking between like the best thing or like possibly the less best thing. Yeah, it's really grown on me, and I thought they did a pretty good job with the way it's working. And I fucking love a crafting system as opposed to clicking with chaos orbs. So that's probably the biggest benefit.
I don't necessarily mind the 10 craft limit that much. It's just, for me, it's one of those things of, I know this depends like very much on what kind of build you're playing, but the build that I'm playing,
Yeah.
It's chaos or bust. If it gives me chaos, anything related to chaos, great Harvest. Gives me anything else, I've got random other crafting projects. It's not like I just like throw them away, but it's just, if it's anything which isn't chaos, it's just dull. And the actual gameplay itself isn't that exciting. If it was a case of I killed a really cool boss, and if the crafts came from doing fun content, right? It's like, if I did...
It is fun.
No, but like, if I did Shaper, and then I got given the exact same crafting bench, I'd be like, fuck yeah, I did something cool, I got the bench. Instead, it was like, I randomly spammed Zana missions to walk into a side area to get a bunch of random crafts from killing like a pack of blue mobs. Like,
I
it's
think
not
you,
engaging.
I don't like that analogy or that like.
Yeah.
I don't like that at all because you can reduce so many things in PoE down to that. I did this content over and over again, and I didn't kill an engaging boss. I mean, who thinks it's that interesting to kill the big, the big Romba in Alvis, right? But we can still like go and do Alva missions and be really excited about the temple that's going to give us double crop.
That's something you built. Like, that's the point there. Like, that was you ran your different Alvas, you ran your 12 incursions, you built up to a temple.
Over and over again to get a chance to get the corruption temple. If you don't get the corruption temple, it's like break, then you're just waiting for the next one. It's like,
but there's an actual progression system with that. Like, it's the same with the Conquerors. You're saying, like, I need to do 5 things to then go against the boss. The whole point with Alva is you run your 12 incursions, you then get a temple. With Harvest, it's you're just putting coins in. You're just putting Zana missions. And
can I think that a fundamental issue here with Harvest is how overarchingly powerful it is for almost any goal you could have gear-wise in Path of Exile. The comparison to Alva is, I think, an apt one, where you have, you go to Alva and you want to make the double corrupt chamber, and that is pretty much the most powerful thing that Alva can do. But you do that when you have that one goal in mind. Alva isn't where you go when you want to finish your ring, unless you're trying to double corrupt for a great ring implicit. It isn't where you go when you want to finish your basically every piece of gear in your character. Whereas Harvest is where you go when you want to finish any piece of gear in your character almost. And so you have all of this power bound up in this one mechanic. I think this level of crafting power is something that is probably long-term acceptable in the game. But the fact that it's so concentrated in one thing that has a spawn chance of 5% baseline, and also is, as any piece of content would be, is one specific kind of content that people might subjectively really dislike, means you're forcing everyone through this bottleneck of content, and everyone feels like they have to go to Harvest for everything. If you were to take that crafting power and spread it out through other mechanics over the course of time, I think that would lead to a much, much healthier way of approaching endgame crafting, because now you're not just trying for but Harvest. You're trying for, maybe they move some of the crafts to Shapers somehow, or they move some of the crafts to Alva's Temple. And if you need fire stuff, you go to this. You need lightning stuff, you go to that. I don't know how you would do it specifically, but if you could spread that level of power and that draw across more content than just the 5% occurrence rate of Harvest, it would seriously diminish a lot of the problems that I have with it.
Sure.
Yeah, this
it's
is
just
why
that I'm just saying that there's like nothing else, right? Like going forward, there could be more systems that would, in my opinion, work like Harvest. But going back on the systems that are currently in the game and trying to improve those, I don't like that at all. Because you brought up like specific stuff for specific items when it comes to finishing with double corrupt. There's nothing like that. There's no, I need to craft my boots, I'm going to go to this place. Or like, I'm going to craft my helmet, I'm going to go to this place. There's just nothing like that anymore. There's influences, I suppose, but that's something that you're doing. With Harvest, it is a specific goal for every single specific part of your gear. And I think that's pretty important, because outside of that, you're like running Hamlet for essences or something. I don't know. Like if you're actually trying to make your gear yourself.
You crazy? You're not doing that?
What?
So good.
Yeah, of course I'm doing that.
Okay.
But like that's not a good, like, essences compared to Harvest are like, it's trash.
That was kind of my point. Like,
Stop your phone.
if other crafting systems in the game had anywhere close the power of Harvest, or if the power of crafting was less concentrated in just the one system and spread out across more of them, it would alleviate the issue that I have, which is that it feels like Harvest is the endpoint of every single project I take on, and that is unpleasant. That's frustrating and that's boring. And I'd like to be interacting with more of the systems in the game.
Yeah, it feels like such a fundamental game mechanic. That's why ever since like the end of Harvest, I was like saying it needs to be woven into like the core game through like the Atlas or something, where different bosses give crafts or different regions can give different crafts added to your bench. Like weave that into the core crafting
feel like
system.
that would have been
Sure.
way better. I was so surprised that Harvest was coming back as quickly as it was, because honestly, I was kind of anticipating a broader overhaul like that, where other crafting systems have the aspects of harvest woven into them. Maybe new league mechanics going forward get a little bit of harvest spice peppered on top each time they introduce a new league, and instead we just got the whole spice cabinet at once in one mechanic that shows up 5%.
I can kind of understand why they did it, because it's easier for them to kind of like keep a lid on it. Because I think like GGG are really kind of afraid of the power of harvest for good reason. It's extremely powerful. And right now it's like the perfect example of an all too often used balancing approach where make something more and more tedious to balance its power, which is really problematic, because you get the people who are happy to do it and go through that tedium and they benefit from it, and then the people who don't want to go through that tedium and feel like they're missing out, which is psychologically kind of a negative impact for the game, a net negative, I think.
Yeah, but like, what are you using those items for is a pretty big deal. And also, like, would you prefer if it wasn't added then?
I mean,
For me personally, I can say yes, but
look,
that's the
like I
minority
said,
point of view.
No, I prefer it's at least in as it is now, but I would prefer it be better as well.
People,
I
if
would
it
have
stays
preferred a
as
longer
is,
wait.
people are going to be bored shitless of it, like even 2 leagues from now.
No, I disagree completely. I don't think that.
I'd see it.
I would have preferred a longer wait for a more gradually implemented system, like spread out across more. I don't care about the garden, and I don't care about Oshabi. I'm not trying to like shit on whoever it was that designed those systems and stuff. The monsters are neat. Some of the monsters are neat, and those could show up, in other content somewhere. But like, that was never really what I cared about. So I would have much preferred to see a lot of those crafting mechanisms brought into other league mechanics that are more engaging.
So the problem isn't with harvest itself. It's more so with like
it's
the other
it's
stuff.
It's the concentration of all the things you do with harvest. There's too much going into one thing that has a too random occurrence rate to make it pleasant to do.
Like
I
if
think.
you so this I'm going to use a food analogy because I'm kind of hungry. If I really like garlic, I like it on certain types of pizza. If I took an ice cream scoop full of garlic and put it on one slice of pizza, that is too much garlic in one place. But if I take a similar amount of garlic and spread it out across multiple pizzas, I would probably like any individual slice of one of those pizzas.
I'll point to like a few things where I think harvest is kind of taking away, like taking too much on itself. I think it's odd that synthesized and fractured items are coming from harvest. I think that's odd.
Yeah.
I mean, why isn't like fractured items or something coming from? Maybe we should have a fractured region, like a region where if you kill in this region, if you get a synthesis map or whatever, you'll be granted like a fracture at the end of it or something.
Hell, why not have a crafting bench that spawns after the cortex kill that lets you synthesize one item?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Stuff like that.
That's what I'm saying. Like, take these powerful crafts from harvest
and just
put them in something else.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about it this way: if you were, because I thought like, but how are they going to implement like all these different crafts everywhere? Because that was what I wanted as well in the beginning, and then I started thinking, well, that's so. Like, can you do it through orbs? That's so many orbs to add, remove, and all the different elements and everything. It's like that might be too much, right? Maybe those kind of things need to stay in harvest. But there are like some pretty, specific niche things in there that you could put elsewhere, to where you would go do the other content to engage as well with some of the crafting, like synthesizing or fracturing, or I don't know, maybe even div carding should be somewhere else.
Hell, throw Einhar a fucking bone, man.
Yeah.
Give him some more crafts.
And for incursion, I'm with you. I thought that's what they're gonna do with incursion.
They took away so many cool crafts when they got rid of bestiary. Like, just take some of the harvest beasts. They're already beasts. Turn them into beasts that can roam around in Einhar missions, and then there you go. You find the crafts as Einhar crafts sometimes.
Sure.
When I say that I think people will be bored of harvest in 2 leagues' time, I think it's just one thing that I want to clarify. There's a difference between harvest as a mechanic and harvest crafting. So harvest crafting is you've cleared everything out, you've got the little bench, you have your item. people like making powerful items. People will like making powerful items 2 leagues from now. The actual, you go into an empty blue zone, you run around the massive zone and see, I've got one here, one there, one there. That isn't engaging. Like, the actual act of harvest isn't interesting. And because it's so powerful, it is the best way of doing everything. The point that you spec your entire atlas around getting as much harvest as possible, and it's so powerful that you would rather do that than do rather interesting things. Let's play other regions. Let's spec my stuff so I don't have double Zana. Like, it's just so powerful, and it dominates all other strategies. And if they don't change how it is, you're going to get bored shitless of it, because it's just going to be the dominant strategy every single... Like, there's no way that Harvest isn't the dominant strategy every league.
But the
Why
dominant
not?
strategy
Why not?
for what? Like,
Why
what
not?
does it prevent you from doing?
But no, it's just so much... Like, it's just the most efficient way of making items. It's so powerful that every single Atlas strategy, unless you're just racing for 100, is spec around getting as many harvests an hour. Because it's just so powerful.
Like, sorry, I don't mean to keep harping
That's
on this,
fine.
but like to talk about Nugi's earlier point that like you wouldn't be able to weave the fire og and the lightning og and all that into content. I mean, I feel like you can, because you could do something with Delve as well, where there's this super rare one socket resonator, and when you put a scorched fossil into it, it becomes a fire exalt. When you put a metallic fossil into it, it becomes a lightning exalt, and dense fossil becomes a defense exalt. You can roll that into Delve. You can roll it into Bestiary with different beast types. You can roll it into certain bosses with things that are thematic to those bosses. Like, Path of Exile has never lacked in scope. You know, we have passive trees for our Atlas, which is already sort of just this esoteric thing for the content itself. We have craftable passive points from cluster jewels. Like, you can make it work. You can find an elegant way of implementing it.
Yeah, but it's not
But we have to
realistic, is the
recognize,
problem to me.
you know, that there is with the amount of different things you want to do, like having specific divines for everything and managing that. And also the moment that another problem arises, the moment you start doing that and allowing them to be basically become pieces of currency, you're also circumventing the storage that we have right now. You know, I mean, there's a lot of things that start happening the moment you disjoint it from the bench crafting system, you know, where there's a set limit.
I
can't envision how you can place it everywhere, because of course you could have like as many orbs as you want, but I don't know if that's enjoyable for the player and that doesn't create other problems in itself.
Well, I agree with you about the bench system. That is a fundamental shift that would have to be accounted for. But like, I don't know, you can crunch the orbs down to just like, here's a divine resonator and here's an exalt resonator, and then you put in the kind of fossil you want. You know, like I think that those are solvable problems. But yes, pretty much any of those systems would result in harvest crafts essentially becoming tradable.
I'm like 100% with you, Octavian. I think it's a great idea, but I think it's a good idea going forward. Like, this isn't the sort of thing that will like realistically ever happen retroactively. Like, they're not gonna apply all of these systems to old content. I think a big part of that is also a PoE too, you know? Like, I don't think they know what? I don't think they know which systems are staying and which ones aren't. Do you know, Tarke?
PoE?
Like, if
no,
they
it's
give
just
Bestiary a bunch of shit.
It's just everything just PoE 2. Just like, oh
What?
god.
This is what I was talking about when I mentioned earlier that I was surprised at how quickly Harvest was implemented, because I honestly expected something along those kind of lines for Harvest. You know, it being maybe not folded into existing content, but new league mechanics being, you know, having some aspects to them that are suspiciously Harvest-esque, and you know, that getting added in bit by bit as new leagues are released. That's kind of what I anticipated, rather than just Harvest being wholesale, you know, few changes made and then plopped in.
I feel like it's the perfect example of PoE 2 incoming, Tarke.
It's
so different because people act as if PoE 2 comes out and the game is different. This is an incremental change leading towards an eventual thing that's coming out. You think texture streaming being released right now wasn't a PoE 2 thing?
Yeah, but PoE 2 is coming 2023, 2024, and before anyone chats us, no talk. It's coming.
And we're talking about past league mechanics.
Yeah, I know, but like, it's so
that are getting removed
so far away. and it's confirmed to be that far away. I've had multiple conversations with people. It's not anytime soon. It's just the way that people talk about PoE 2. It's just like it's just next league, just next week, next like you gotta wake
That's not how
up.
GGG's brain works.
Like,
okay, they don't fix shit because it's broken. They fix it when they've got the perfect fucking solution. That's why cannot die
Burning
in the game. That's why
grounds, yeah.
proximity shields work. Like it's always the same sort of mentality. So for them, it doesn't matter when it's coming out. Their mentality persists. We will not change this, or we will only modify this if there is a perfect solution and we know the exact outcome of this circumstance. Like that's all they've ever done. So if we're talking about past mechanics and changing going forward, like this is the one situation where PoE 2 works. Okay,
fine. I don't know. Just from my point of view, like I get, because again, whenever I have this conversation, people think I'm trying to take their items away. I don't care what items people have. If people are having fun, awesome. I just genuinely think that Harvest is a boring mechanic as is, and because it is by far the most powerful mechanic we have at our disposal in the entirety of Path of Exile, it will dominate everything. And well done, Ziggy.
Yeah, but it's something you do on top of things. You don't like go to Harvest to kill bosses.
To give you an example, it's like Delve feels dull this league because it doesn't do like there's no I do Delve and it gives me access to Harvest. Like
yeah, but that's like a million different factors, like the Atlas passive, the new
anything which doesn't feed directly into Harvest feels bad because Harvest is so much better than everything else.
Sure.
Bro, this is not true. Everything doesn't revolve around Harvest. There's so many other things you can do, and to like you can weave in beast crafting as well while you're harvesting. You can sadly the essences are stuck in Harvest as well, you know. So they're not disjointed. So you're kind of gonna double whammy here. Like there are powerful uniques you want as well that require you to do other things. Like my Taste of Hate, I'll never get from Harvest.
You turn unique into another unique. That was a joke.
You'll go to Valdo's Rest and farm Ancient Ores forever, or you will go to Kadira, which I did, where I got mine, you know, and or you need, like, if you need base items, it's probably not the best place to harvest, you know, like there are other places that'll guarantee you like 86 items. Or if from an SSF environment, there are so many other things you're doing around your Atlas that doesn't revolve around Harvest.
I mean, Trade League works the same way. Like, are there any, I would imagine like there's augments that are just bound to a certain meta where they're going to be significantly more expensive, but I'm sure there's many situations where you can farm a lot faster by doing like Valdo, for instance, than and then buy your crafts than just trying to look for that one specific craft that you need on this one item, which will, by the way, take you fucking months because Harvest is super strong and you can get really lucky to fix up like one item, but holy shit, does it take a long time to actually get this stuff done. Like people will behave as if Harvest will like magically grant you this like perfectly geared that character. That is just not the case. Like
you still have to do a lot of work, and you still I'm not saying that it's makes the game actively worse. I'm just saying it's tedious, that like it's just the funnel that everything has to go through it. Like everything has to go, any crafting project, Harvest is the solution. You're never going to be like like there's never any alternative. So because of that, everyone is funneled into that thing.
It's a big scoop of garlic.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think going forward they can definitely, but like even the gameplay, because you said gameplay, like where you go from one node to the other node. For me, the mobs are really engaging. Like you did Bramble Valley Voss, like that's just fucked up, you know. And it's the same thing for Harvest.
I do like the 4 thing. Apparently that just got nerfed. They've made them a bit squishier.
Made Bramble Valley worse and squishier.
They're nerfing the tier 4 Harvest things. The most recent patch notes. They're making them have less life.
Nice. Maybe Quinn won't die as much to them.
I discovered recently that if you're near a wall, they get buggy and cannot phase.
Yeah, I've had some of that.
I was fighting the pink bear thing for like a good 15 seconds worth before I realized, oh, the health isn't moving.
Yeah. The worst one is the one that like the green one that jumps around.
Yeah,
maybe it's
that
yellow.
One will jump for like 20 minutes.
God, that thing! I've had that thing get stuck for like a full minute, just hopping around and shit, killing attacks. Like, ugh.
Great
and then
mechanic,
it does the
by the
spinning
way.
thing and instantly kills you. What?
But like, this is exactly my point. It's like the the tier 4 bosses can be cool, but they can also just break for a really long time, and you just spend like 30... No, Nugi, don't roll your fucking eyes at me. The jumpy dude, like, every time I see the jumpy dude, it's not a riveting boss fight. I'm not like, oh, this is excellent. It's me waiting for him to be like...
I mean, he does have like a pretty powerful
This is a
fuck you mechanic.
Even though it's the Atlas and boss fight. I mean, once you do things enough, they can kind of fade on you. Like,
I don't know. And then, like, there's that, then there's the fact that when you see a Sharby, it's literally bad. Like, it's just...
I mean, we can all agree that the Sharby is just super poorly implemented in every way.
It seems really... It seems genuinely really weird to me that, for me at least, that the entire game has revolved into get as many harvests as possible, and then when I see like the big harvest bosses, I'm not like, yeah, oh, awesome. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. Like, it doesn't feel good.
Same problem with... Because, like...
The game generally always devolves into most efficient strategies. Like, all the time.
I'm surprised that you weren't more like butthurt about delving. Like delving was the fucking worst thing. You would make level 30 characters in which you would run.
I had the same argument during
as
delve.
fast as possible. Yeah, I mean, that one is so much worse. Like Harvest is at least like engaging, and you're actually dealing with like pretty risky content a lot of the times, and like the maps have a pretty large impact on what the mobs actually do. Like I totally get your guys' point. I fully agree. It would be way cooler if there were most systems where it would be spread out. And I think the Atlas passives have definitely shown that we have a lot of room for actual like old mechanics being pretty engaging and pretty fun. Like I never thought that I'm going to be excited to see Essence like function. And I am. It's cool.
I think Essence really shows what's important about that mechanic, like at least that zone. To me, what I'm getting out of Essence is that it actually gives me an upgrade now. Before it's like, oh, I can trade and try and get like maybe 3 deafening Essence in like 3 hours, or I can use Screaming, which is like that's just a lower tier of something else I could have gotten. So it's like I'm settling for less. But the fact that we're able to get them all to deafening, right? It's just feels so good that we can go just beyond what is otherwise available. And some of these rarer ones, like for instance, like the Scorn or the Scorn ones, like for crit, where you couldn't really force crit onto items before unless they're like influence. Like that feels really good sitting on, like, what do I have here? 50 shrieking and 30 deafening. Like I've never had that before, and I feel like I can actually have it. It feels so good.
That's a month of farming Harvest right there, baby. Just a couple essences.
Yeah.
Does Parandis work? Is there something about Parandis where there's a secret wisdom scroll farming strategy or some shit? Yeah, because coins sell for wisdoms, no? Pretty good.
Well, they sell for a scrap each, yeah.
Yeah. That's how you get all the wisdom scrolls on SSF. You just go to Harvest. Fair point, Octavian. You go to Harvest and you sell the item, and it drops you 26,000 coins, and you've got wisdom scrolls for an entire year.
You can't get wisdom scrolls without Harvest.
That many.
Yep.
Too strong.
It's too strong. You know what? That convinced me.
I don't know. I think this is a really good patch. I really like the Atlas system. I do think it's a shame that there's just this one thing, because there will always be a dominant strategy. There'll always be something which just like overshadows everything else. But I don't know if it's ever been this blatantly obvious before and all-encompassing. Because, like, when you talk about, like, the whole, like, Elder Sphere and, like, all of this rubbish, like, that was a very obtuse thing, and it was something that, like, not that many people actually bothered doing with. Whereas the whole, like, just Harvest is, like, ooh.
Wait. So if it's obscure and only a few people get to exploit it, it's okay?
No, not at all. I'm not saying... But, like, I think it's going to be a bigger issue sooner because more of the player base will be doing it.
But then that we also get a better system sooner because there's going to be more...
In theory,
you know,
in theory.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot more, what's it called? Feedback on the system to improve it. Right? Because one of the main things I hear, and I've seen how many posts now about it being bugged and the occurrence rate is not right, and how can I run 50 maps and not get one, or I play PoE for a full weekend. They only actually play 2 hours, but they harvest, right? After running like the 12 maps, or it's like there's like all these like theories and why it doesn't work and why it's bad, but I also think it's about alleviating what it is that frustrates people and finding a way to where, you can hit more, you can broadly make everyone happy about the system rather than making some people feel like they just lost out on everything. And it's just RNG,
Yep.
I'm
Like dangerous having harvest nodes on the tree itself, for instance.
Yeah.
I think that skews the whole thing.
No, I agree.
Right? I think that's like a problematic point. The fact that there are that many gardens, per that it takes so long. Like Ziggy last time we were on talked a lot about how time consuming it was, especially if you're running more than one person or just going the whole thing. Like it can take you an hour. If you don't have that much time, it can feel kind of frustrating. Having to deal with that. Figuring out a way. Well, how do you make it like less disruptive whenever you engage it? I think those are the points we need to look at, or that needs to be improved going forward in the more like immediate, time frame, and Oshabi as well. And then I think it looks a lot better already. So you're not constantly getting hit by these bad moments.
I'm very curious to hear specifically from Ziggy and Octavian on this, because it's mostly been me shouting at people. But like Nugi, Raiz, and me, we all play SSF, so our experience of Harvest is probably a lot better than most people's. When it comes, because we're not talking about the whole Discord side of it, because that is a massive part of Harvest. So for you two, how do you feel about that aspect of Harvest League?
Ziggy, you go ahead.
Trading Harvest effectively just leans further into what I was saying earlier, where the people who are willing to put up with the tedium or the frustration or the difficulty of doing something like that will get, they'll go through that and they'll get really rewarded, but they'll be kind of frustrated to do it because it's like the way that they, the process they have to go through kind of sucks. And then the people who don't will be, feeling like they get the feels bad from they're missing out. Like, oh, I'm personally unwilling to go through the whole Discord trading thing. So it's like, kind of feel like I'm missing out a bit, that kind of sucks. So I think that's that just further enhances the core problem that's already there, I think, with the harvest side of things. Because right now, like, if you're not doing that, the answer is to do Zana map farming, right? Which I think is tedious. I think trying to get harvest that way is tedious. That's the same problem, but to a lesser extent than the trading.
I mean,
is.
Where would you put it? Because like doing Zana stuff for me in like annoyment level, like how fucking annoying is it? It's like a 4. How fucking annoying is harvest trading? It's a what?
4 out of 10 or 5?
Out of 10. Yeah.
I couldn't tell you. I'm not engaging in the trading myself. So it'd have to be someone who is actually actively trading on the Discord. Some people like it. Some people hate it, but view it as something that they necessarily have to do.
I've been doing a decent amount of trading, but because hardcore trade is basically just like a real big private league, I've actually just been using trade chat legitimately.
I see a lot of 10s in the chat, 8s and 9s. Haven't seen anything below a 7. Oh, there's a 4 out of 10.
Like, I don't know. Trade chat is in hardcore trade, at least. Like Trade Chat 1 is actually a more reliable way to get the craps that I need than the TFT Discord, because there's basically no one on the TFT Discord from hardcore trade. There's like 7 people.
Some people do like it though, like MP in chats. Sounds like he really likes it. So
Well,
some people do really like it and enjoy the community aspect of it, which is totally fair. But I think the point stands that GGG put this 10 crafting limit in there for a reason, and the fact that we can just go through some hoops to still trade them completely circumvents that, and that's just something that GGG will choose to ignore, I think.
I don't think it would be fair to use someone as like MP as an example, because you always keep in mind that like if any one of us was to randomly go over to softcore trade, we have a severe advantage using any of those platforms because we have a name, so we don't have to deal with all the vouch bullshit that a lot of people have to deal with.
What about scamming? Yeah, how scammy is it? Do people scam like crazy or? Shit.
On the last
pretty good.
Fated Connections, so they had Path of Math and Gazion, and Bala was talking about this quite a lot. And Bala's, he always plays Trade League, he's always tries like crazy min-max. And he was saying that one of the big issues that he was seeing firsthand was that because people are so desperate to get the crafts, because if they let them like sit in the Discord for too long, someone else will snap them up, is people will leap on them like right away. So it's actually incredibly easy to scam because you just make false accounts, and because people are so desperate for your exalts, they'll just latch onto you as soon as possible. And it's not difficult to just be like, oh, my Discord got blocked, just make a new Discord. Like, you know what I mean? So.
Yeah.
But
it gets kind of fishy as well when you have the reroll crafts, because you have an amulet that's got 27 life on it, and you give it to a guy and you say, please add remove life, and they give it back with 27 life, and they're like, oh well, that was unlucky, sorry, you can go.
Shit. Oh.
That said, I must attest that I have never had a single person scam me, but that is, as someone who's streaming the game and also in hardcore trade, which is a much smaller server, and if you consistently scam people there, like, you just won't have a market to sell to anymore.
Making you that
playing with 7 other people, you're all friends. You can't hurt each other.
It's very much the
Exactly.
case of living with one other person and you eat their food in the fridge and you're like, wasn't me. Someone else must have eaten that, sorry. Yeah. I know, for the next Baeclast, I think we should probably bring on some Trade League people and they can give more of their opinion on this side of things. Yeah. But I do think that there's a lot of issues that people like willingly just ignore because it's like they like the system, so they'll just excuse away a lot of the problems and be like, oh, it's better than nothing. And I don't know, I personally, I get very frustrated with that kind of mentality. But
I've actually
you guys, I like it a lot,
have
but
to
then
do that in
I
PoE
agree.
though. We've always had to do that to some extent. If you are not willing to kind of let things go, in the in the guise of it'll get better later, it's very hard to enjoy PoE. It always has been. There's always something that could be better. It's just I've gotten better at it over the years at just taking the systems for what they are and knowing that they want to make a better system and trying to get better feedback.
Yeah. I don't know.
Zoop.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree and disagree, but yeah, I would keep arguing the point. How are we feeling about Ritual itself after 3 weeks? There was already some talk early on of people kind of being a bit like over it, or are we still enjoying it?
I was just talking about this on stream yesterday, actually, because like initially first leveling, I was like, and then it got better and better and better and steadily better, and then I got to endgame and it was like I was pogging out, it was great, but now I'm starting to get sick of it. Yeah, like it's something about maybe the interruption of it, or kind of some of the little delays it has, the ways it spawns monsters really slowly sometimes, where I'm like getting close to skipping it sometimes just because I'm like, ugh. So there's something there that I think is gonna get more and more aggravating as weeks go by. And I'm starting to see that trend where more people are starting to be like, yeah, I'm skipping them now.
See, because I was like, when we did the first Baeclast, I was like, man, you guys are talking about exalted orbs, all these 6 links, blah blah. Yeah, I'm not getting any of that stuff. And then actually after that Baeclast, I started getting stuff, and I was like, oh, cool. Like I'm getting interesting uniques, and I'm starting to do it. And oh, here's this build enabling thing. At this point, I'm pretty over it because I kind of have everything that comes to mind that I could do. But I'm not gonna lie, from an SSF point of view, I have like 10 different builds that I want to play, and like 9 of the build enabling things that I needed for them were from Ritual, sorry. And of course from Harvest as well. Harvest drops Ritual, so yes. But right now I'm pretty, a lot of the times I feel like, I'm not getting Harvest. I'm not killing Conquerors. I'm getting less Awakeners. I'm getting less Splinters. Ritual takes a long time. Yeah, I'm getting kind of over it.
I feel like Ritual is running into the incursion problem. Like there's just not enough good variety. There's not enough excitement. It's kind of just, you do your thing, you get your thing, you defer and go next. I've tried messing about with, when you get the big shrine that has like the throne kind of thing, and you're like, oh, that looks better.
The quantity,
and it's probably more. Yeah, I mean, all the different types of shrines have like a common and a rare one, I think, right?
Yep.
And so, but the rare ones never seem to be better anyway. So I'm like, I'm not really getting I'm feeling like I'm never. It has more to do with just getting lucky with a lot of monsters around them, and then giving you a lot of juice, and you just check both the shops, and it's like if you get something good, it's good. But I'm never that excited anymore because I feel it doesn't take a long time to go through all the different types of rituals, and you've just kind of seen them all. There's no special one popping up every now and then to really excite you, and it's kind of weird. You can't really cascade the monsters through them probably either. Like you don't get these like spikes of massive monsters in the end, or doing the boss so it follows you all the way through. Or I mean, I guess you can do that if you go to the shrine and it does actually capture the boss. It's just weird. Like all these like great moments that I was hoping I would get are just not there.
I think a lot of those are meant to be like there's the sort of spikes in interest in the mechanic where, like, I guess the equivalent with breach is where you get a Kula breach, or the equivalent with, I don't know, what's another example with another mechanic? Like the equivalent of betrayal is when you get the Elrian to show up that you need because you need minus mana. Like there's not really that. This is gonna sound pretentious as heck, but there's not really that like texture to the mechanic. It's really like every ritual kind of
mouthfeel.
But I think part of what was supposed to fill that role were the vessels, where you're supposed to like go, all right, I'm going to capture all the rituals in this map that I've invested in. Those should all have 70, 80 monsters in each one, and then also get a boss, and then throw those all in with my next map, and I'll have super rituals in a map, and that'll be cool. And it is kind of cool, but it's also this thing you have to like opt into. And a lot of people don't want to use their vessels because they don't know when they should use them. And, it's a mechanic that's probably just going to rot in somebody's tab instead of being something like a Kula breach that just pops out and says, you're doing a Kula breach now. Do it.
Yeah, I never thought that I'm going to say it. It's too easy. I thought it's going to be a matter of like, it locks you in. You can't really get out. And, I thought Ritual is just going to be screaming, you're locked in here with me, bitch. And it just never happens. Like, it just never happens. I've never felt at risk. Like maybe the Chaos Orbeez things, they tend to do like a lot of damage, but I mean, you get some Chaos Res and it's just
I think
non-issue.
the whole thing, like it's not that it's not rewarding, like it's consistently fairly rewarding. It's I think it's just the whole mechanic is a bit conservative and slow. It's a very 6 out of 10 league mechanic, I think.
I think it's a good league mechanic being added now alongside this like massive expansion. They really picked a good one. But yeah, itself. I mean, somebody kept pointed out that if streamers are getting bored a month in, that sounds like a perfect 3-month mechanic. Well, I totally hear that. That makes
valid. It's pretty valid. But I'm hearing a lot of like regular players starting to get bored of it as well, though, which I think is slightly more concerning.
I mean, I also there were a lot of streamers who would talk about skipping it from like week 1. So I've never skipped it. I've never felt like skipping it. I feel like it is rewarding. I was waiting for someone to bring up vessels. Before I get into that, though, I definitely agree with the challenge was never there. So it was one of those things when I first started testing the mechanic, I'm like, okay, in maps, this is probably where it's going to start getting spooky. But for now, doesn't feel that scary, but I'm sure the challenge will eventually come. And I'm at the point now where it's kind of like, right, well, I'm in the end game. I'm doing the tier 16 maps. Maybe once I get all my watchstones, then it will become really scary once I get to Awaken 8. And now it's like, well, what do when I'm starting like tier 19s, maybe then that's when the challenge is going to come in. I don't know. I've only skipped one, and that was a multi-proj like minus max crit map. I only ran because I was playing in softcore, and it was the Bramble. And I remember Octavian talk about how he lost his character to that. And I'm like, I don't want to lose too much XP, so I didn't respawn them in the boss room, and that's the only one I've skipped in the entire time I've been playing.
I think the problem is the ritual vessels could make them really challenging, because I did like 4 ritual vessels alongside a map that had like a crap load of bosses caught in it, and the last one was impossible. Like when one of the boss, like 20 bosses popped out because I captured multi-map bosses and stuff like that. It's like armies of bosses popping out. That was sick, but there's literally zero reason to really do that unless you're like just trying to do Solariums or something, because although it scales your points up, it gives you way more points than you could ever spend on anything that actually ever appears.
Yeah.
So maybe if the ritual vessels also scaled up the amount of loot that appeared in the store so that more things would appear and there'd be more opportunities for you to actually spend those points, I could see people being like, I'm putting a lot of ritual vessels with spicy stuff in it. Like if they had some sort of like quantity multiplier for the shops, I think that would do a lot. And reroll's not the answer. You reroll once, it costs 2,000 points and you've seen everything in both. You buy both in every, like I got like, how much is I got like nearly 20k in one or something. And it's like, what do you even do? Just buy a bunch of, shards, a bunch of
Just transmutes.
Transmutes, yeah. Buy like 5 piles of transmutes.
It does...
Were you guys
oh, go on.
forgetting a metamorph too? Were you guys like forgetting about metamorph? Because I find myself very frequently in ritual, even a month in, I'm just like, it's not a habit for me to check the ritual tab. Like maybe a little bit more so now I'm used to it, but it's just kind of like a non-event, and that's on SSF. I can't.
I mean,
on Trade League, I can see a lot of people just forgetting about it.
I can 100% say once every couple of hours, I'll be like, oh, I didn't ritual that last map. Like I didn't buy. I'll clear them all out, but like, oh, I didn't actually buy at the end of it. I did that yesterday, and I was like, oh.
I do that all the time.
The thing which is funny about me doing it yesterday though is I did it yesterday. I'm like, oh, I'm such an idiot. And then like 5 minutes later, I'm like, I just did the exact same thing again. It isn't very climactic. Like that's the other thing as well. Like that, it's a mechanic which doesn't have much. I mean, as Octavian said, doesn't have like texture to it. Like it reminds me a lot of the old reliquary system that we had way back in Legacy League. You could go into the reliquary room and you could get shit out of that chest, but that was an exciting moment. But there's nothing that exciting about killing 3 to 4 circles at a reasonable pace, quite low challenge, and then just pressing a window and there just being stuff in front of you. Like, it's not very exciting. It's kind of like the reverse loot box. Like, loot boxes are evil, vicious things, but the whole point is there's the box. What's inside the box? That's the excitement. Whereas in this, it's just window. I'm
not gonna lie. Like, despite it not being pretty efficient, I do think it, especially for SSF, but I can see that happening for less experienced Trade League players too. Like, it enables a lot of like different things. And looking over those items, initially I thought that might be a big problem. It might be a pretty big benefit for people just like discovering certain parts of the game, or like even seeing how, like immediately recognizing what a item for a build that they're not necessarily going to play or played in the past looks like. Because sometimes you just get a really good wand, and even though you've never played a build that uses a wand like that, you're like, wow, that looks like a good item. That's something that I can really like remember. Maybe it's going to benefit me trading them. Maybe I'm going to make a build around it. And that like inspiration, I think that's worth a lot. But yeah, the oomph just isn't there.
That's a really good point. I like that a lot.
I mean, I'm a big fan of the whole trade window deferral system and all that. I think that's a really neat and well implemented loot system. I think they've gotten really good at creating loot systems. The same thing with heist, like the end part of heist, I thought was very interesting as well. Like the good choices, but you only get to pick one. Because you can't just blanket the players with only good items, because you would just get too many good items. So you kind of have to pick and choose. And I like that fact too. I like that they've done that twice in a row now. Heist was just too rewarding in every other aspect. So you couldn't really get around doing heist. At least you can get around doing ritual. And I'm looking for, I haven't done ritual for over a week now, I think. It's because I'm delving and crafting and doing all these other things that I have all the big value items that I could expect to get. Like I have my Empower 4, my Enlighten 4, my Vigil, my whatever it is I could expect to get from the window. So I'm just going to put that on hold until I need to start looking for new things to build my way towards again. But that's not
so
delve.
Hard. That's so hard for me to do. Like I can't. It's honestly like, sure, I have 10 builds that I want to play after this one, but what if I can get 11? It is so bad for what I'm trying to do with the delve prep, and I just cannot resist it, man. I don't know. Sorry?
You just need that value.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
But think about it this way. Think about all the things you're giving up by sitting there and spending your time on this.
Yeah, it's bad. I know I should stop, but I can't do it. It's not even engaging either. That's the worst part. Yeah, but it's bad. I should have like when you said a week ago, I'm like, dude, I've been talking about it for a week and I'm still doing it. Fuck. I should stop. I've been talking about. Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna lie. Every time one of those rituals comes up, I can feel my mouse drawn to it. I'm like, I have to resist not clicking it. Sometimes I'll just click it. I'll be like, why did I just do that? Because I just have to. You know, you have to click it. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
not again.
Click it.
TP out, TP in. Oh no.
Fortunately, as opposed to you, Nugi, I don't have that sort of problem with heist. When you were talking about heist, I was gonna do the thing you do with the eye roll, but then I was gonna do like a full body roll.
I mean, I feel like that's Nugi. I do worry about your neck sometimes because you
guys.
can be very like throwing yourself out of your chair.
Careful.
Yeah.
I want to land on your cat, Turkey.
Yeah. Maybe that's just when I'm talking, but so with that in mind, do you think that Ritual's the kind of league that we'd be chill if they were like, okay, it's gone, or would you want it recycled into the game? If so, how so?
I mean, it's
gone. I guess.
it's a
Gone, it's
non-event.
gone. If they want to do more with it, they can.
Mm.
I think it would be boring if they just kept it. If they want to implement it over time, I think they should add more types of shrines and spice it up a little bit. You know, it's coming back. We add a few more you can find. Maybe go explore. Maybe try a few. You know, that kind of thing. It doesn't need to be much, but if there's like 1 or 2 unique shrines that would then appear 1 in 100 maps, it'd be exciting. You know, oh, what's this new ritual? And all of a sudden, this whole mechanic just feels so much better and so much more interesting. Engage with.
I mean, they have like one that's actually feels like that's that 0 one,
Which
I
one?
guess, because it drops 6 links.
Yeah, that one's nice.
That one
I like
you-
that.
you
I still
actually
do
feel that one.
Mm-hmm.
But then imagine if people start, it's going to be another encouraging situation where people go like, well, you've implemented these new shrines and now I'm not getting the old ones. Like, well, you ruined my mechanic.
You know what they should implement? A synthesis shrine where it shrinks.
That'd be
Oh.
cool. That'd be cool.
Fail it
I
if you
see.
step into the border, or do you just die?
You
I don't
die.
I think you could port it out on your map.
They could do a
there you
Maven
go.
one where the whole time
It's
through you're
gone.
playing Dance Dance Revolution, playing the memory game. That could be fun.
Yeah, very. And then when you succeed at the end and
die
you win the
anyway.
ritual, you explode
Yeah,
anyway. Yeah. Perfect.
You could
Perfect.
make a pretty fun, unique map which was only rituals, or like a prophecy or something. Could be pretty
Scaling
cool.
ones. Yeah. So like, there's 15 rituals, and they just get progressively more and more and more intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make a unique map
always
where it's
have to
only
file.
memory games and they get more and more intense. It adds a step each time. It's like Pillars of a Run, but every top is a memory game.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I'd die.
I'm kind of surprised they didn't do like a rare, like super ritual, because it seems like kind of obvious that you just do a zone which is like 30. It seems kind of weird that there's a range of like 3 or 4.
I don't know what you're talking about, Tarke. It's 20. Yeah, it's 3 or 4. That's, you know, that can be like 20. How much is it? 33% more, I guess.
You guys haven't gotten the 5 ritual?
Fuck off.
Like, wait. Oh.
Listen, all I'm saying is that the percentage is more than they buffed Glacial Hammer with, okay? And that's a
Mm.
big deal.
True.
That's a big number for GGG. It's like 3 times as much.
It's more than both of the Glacial Hammer buffs combined.
Twice as much, actually.
Okay. Well, does anyone have anything else they'd like to talk about, or should we wrap it up?
I'm glad that they're working on the patch, you know, and releasing stuff sooner. Because they said that they're going to do it mid next week, and apparently they're doing it before the end of this one. So I appreciate it. Maybe I'll be a
And on
little bit fucking less salty.
Yeah, ending on the positive notes. That's nice. I'll say I'm having more fun mapping and bossing than ever before in Path of Exile.
Absolutely.
Apart, like, performance issues and stuff aside, like, that stuff is really juicy at the moment.
I honestly think the game is in like the best state it's been in. Like, I didn't have to put in a while after that. Like, I haven't played since the very, very beginning olden days. I started in Harbinger. I'm just a youngin', but I don't know. This is the best Path of Exile I've played. The only issues lingering are my problems with the implementation of Harvest and technical issues.
The technical issues are worse than they've ever been, I think. It's kind of a shame
Yeah.
considering the
Yeah, that's rough.
extra month thing. But then, yeah, if I had to point out to like a specific league, I would say the game feels the best that it's felt since Conquerors, which has been the like December league previously. But Conquerors was interesting because it was a pretty big shift for PoE, but this is just so much better. Like it improves every aspect of PoE for me anyway. Yep. Outside of visual one, because I fucking hate RuneScape. But other than that, yeah.
I think the last time I felt disengaged with PoE was in Breach, and what's the league after?
Prophecy.
The one where you could click the box and you got big stuff.
Click the box. That's
Legacy? Legacy.
oh, okay.
Wasn't Legacy
You were
after Breach?
engaged in Legacy?
Yeah, because it had there's something about getting all those different unique items, and there was a good meta around that time still.
No, there wasn't. It was really stale.
was.
It hadn't changed in
No.
ages.
Wasn't that Vol Fireball meta?
I don't. Is
Yeah, but it was pretty. Yeah, but it was like
Wasn't that just after they
double
killed
dipping and all that.
AoE? So like half the skills are
And the-
trash.
And the league was like 6 months.
It was
too.
a terrible meta. That was one of the worst
Was it a
metas
bad
you've ever
meta?
had.
I agree.
Nostalgia kind of
Well,
erases
Breach was
some of
good.
the
I remember
negatives.
Breach. I don't know. It's probably like just spillover from Breach because I like Breach so much.
I don't even remember what I played in Breach.
Breach was like the
Flame
That was-
Blast.
that was the best thing. Poison had just come in onto the it was when Poison just arrived, right? And everyone thought Poison was crap, and it was like insane. And the fact that like the breach lords just added so much, I felt, to the game for like end game replayability. It's the same thing now with the Atlas. I really like the fact that I can fight breach souls again and feel good about it. It's so nice.
I remember.
Did we even
watching
like?
it. Go ahead.
I'm just thinking if we even had Shaper at that point.
No.
No?
Don't.
Yeah, it was just at Ziri, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Shit.
It's like mapping just felt good. I feel like after that point, it's there's been so many tedious times in PoE where we have all these systems we go through, and it's like, and some blocking.
I
This
mean,
feels
as
a
much as
lot better.
GGG said like 2020 was a good year for PoE, I think it was the worst year they've had. Like,
It was a
Ever.
pretty rough year, yeah.
it was a pretty rough year, especially like the performance stuff. It was a pretty weird one, but they're kicking this one off really, to me anyway, the strongest that they have. Like,
We're back on the Atlas now, like full stop. Back on the Atlas. It's nice.
the only thing is, I wish maps were like more value. You know, it's just so not exciting when a T16 drops. It's just like I wish
that
with all
kinda
the stuff it
died
could be a little bit
with-
more.
What was that league you joined in, Octavian? Harbinger?
Harbinger, yes.
Yeah, maps being valued died when Harbinger went out, basically.
Well, Harbinger is when I started streaming. I joined in Warbands, but yeah, Harbinger maps were like nothing. I remember Harbinger was a league I got my first 100 ever in, and I did it by buying Minotaur maps in bulk for 2 or 3C.
No, I remember doing that. That was actually a really good. Yeah. Oh god, I lost a character to a DD. I killed 5 supports that league. My friend
remember.
Kane kept getting really angry and then just killing himself to Ice Nova boxes. But yeah, we would just spam Minnow maps. That was good. That was a good meta.
Reminds me of that one time when boxes came out and Pox died at rank 1 to a Ice Nova box and like a level
I'm still
8.
afraid of Ice Nova boxes.
That's
To this
spooky.
day.
That's spooky.
I got crit frozen by one the other day for like 6,000.
Yeah.
Yep.
Probably wasn't even like plus levels, just an 86
No, it was just
or
like
83.
C16.
Yeah.
It crit me and I nearly died. And I was like, oh,
Wait.
what?
Does plus to level of contained items in the box scale the Nova?
Plus,
It's just plus levels,
it's just
no?
plus
Plus level.
yeah.
Yeah, it scales it. Scales as if it's in the higher level.
I never
It's
knew
super
that.
scary.
That's pretty
Yeah.
neat. You learn something new every day.
Plus 5 in the T16 is very scary.
Yeah. Right, well, in that case, I'd like to thank everyone for coming on. We'll try and get some Trade League Zoomers onto the next podcast, so you can all call us elitist while we listen to them talk about trading on Discord.
Oh, okay. That's something that I can talk about. All right, you fuckers who are like, why don't you bring somebody more relatable on the podcast? Oh, I don't know, Empyrean. Shut the fuck up. Okay, you're not. Empyrean is not relatable to you. Okay, he's got great opinions, great perspectives, really smart guy, but he's not fucking relatable. All right, you're much more relatable to us vegan SSFers. All right, than you're ever gonna be to that guy.
That is something
he's,
I find.
He's a great person to be on the podcast, but for a very different reason than what people like a lot of times bring up.
That was something
It's 22.
I did find
Go ahead.
very funny. Sorry, if you haven't watched it, I would recommend watching Faded Connections. But there was a solid like 40-minute discussion of Gazi and Path of Math talk about how they were crafting like 200 exalted helmets. And I'm watching this and I'm like, how are we the elitist podcast? Like, how has this happened? And Balor's just in the background like, I don't pick up anything worth less than 1,000 fusing orbs. It's just like, why are we the elitists? It doesn't make sense. We get excited when an alteration is on the ground. We're like, yes, alteration.
It's like, well, how has your two last weeks went? Well, I dropped an exalted orb. Wow, you really did? That's crazy. We're just like,
Pretty much. I finally 6-linked my chest and they cost 3,990 fusings.
damn.
Just get it from Harvest. I've gotten 2 now.
Wow.
Really?
That is
Yep.
impressive, honestly.
Wow.
I've gotten 2.
That's nuts.
I wouldn't be surprised if the rest of us on the podcast haven't seen a single one.
Never. Not even in Harvest.
Going straight into Elba.
Hey, do you want to hear something really exciting and very 1%?
Yes.
I found a split beast yesterday.
Ooh.
Whoa.
Big. I don't know what I want to do with it yet, but it's exciting.
I found my...
okay. Tarke, something cool you can do if you find that exciting, that's not Harvest. You should get stones in Tyrann's End.
The
And roll them for... Yeah, you roll them for like chance for red beasts in areas to be less common of 2 varieties. So you basically make that area into Lyra Athane, but it's also Tyrann's End at the same time, and you just start spamming beast in there. I saw Sis's list of because he's been doing that. He has like, you know, the prefix to suffix. I've struggled to just find one, and he showed me like 30 of each.
Oh, wow.
I was like, what the fuck? What's
Not
going
bad.
on? It's insane.
Not bad.
Isn't
at
there
all.
something with like 6-link farming too when it comes to that?
Yeah. Oh, it's really strong.
There's a role that has like chance for items to like a small chance for items to drop corrupted or something, and that can let you farm tons and tons of 6 sockets if that's a thing you need.
Nice. I need that one currency, the resident sleeper currency. Yep.
Were we finishing the podcast?
Bye.
At the end. Bye.
Bye bye.